Thank you. Good evening and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. Council members and staff are meeting tonight in the council chambers, but we will continue to offer a hybrid option of both in-person and virtual attendance for the public to engage and participate in council meetings. The public can attend tonight's meeting and future council meetings in person at the George DeSierro City and County Building Council Chambers, located at 1 Tacoma Drive, or watch live on Channel 8 through live streaming on Greenville's website. The public may also participate in public comment either in person or by calling 855-695-3744 and pressing *3 to be placed in the queue for comment. Please note that if you're calling in for public comment and would like to speak on more than one item on tonight's agenda, you will need to press *3 each time to be placed back in the queue for comment. Public comment will be limited to 90 minutes total per item. The first 1 through 15 participants in the queue have 3 minutes to speak. 15 through 25 participants in the queue have 2 minutes to speak. And the time remains the next 26 plus participants in the queue have 1.5 minutes to speak. Again, if joining virtually for public comment, the number is 855-695-3744 and press *3 to be placed in the queue. Screeners will ask callers for their first and last name, neighborhood, and the agenda item the caller would like to comment on. Please call several minutes before the agenda item and press *3 to ensure you're in the queue for comments. If joining in person, we'll ask you to come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. We appreciate your engagement in council meetings and your patience as we transition to this new hybrid system. The City Council meeting is called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson. Here. Capriota.
Here.
Groom. Here. Engel.
Here.
Jezierski.
Here.
Law Evans.
Here.
Lim.
Here.
Lindstedt.
Here.
Shaft.
Here.
Tessier. Here.
A quorum is present. Will everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In an effort to keep order for tonight's meeting, I ask council members to limit their comments to 5 minutes. Abby will be assisting with the timekeeping. We will plan on a 10-minute break at approximately 8 p.m. We will begin this council's review and approval of this evening's agenda. Before we proceed with council member requests, I'd like to note that item 18A, which was council member Law Evans' request to discuss future town halls, has been removed from this evening's agenda at her request. We will now proceed with the review and approval of tonight's agenda. Council may add or remove items from the consent agenda, or council may revise the order of business for the meeting. There has been a request from Councilmember Shaft that item 11E, ranked choice voting, be moved to consent. Are there any objections by council? Seeing none, we will move it to consent. There's also been a request from Councilmember Shaft that item 11A, mayoral election, be considered following item 4C of the agenda. This was also staff's recommendation as indicated on the published agenda. Are there any objections by council for that? Councilmember Groom?
I object.
All right, we will leave that item at 11A. Are there any objections to the agenda being approved as amended? Councilmember Anderson?
I would like to remove agenda item 7C to the regular agenda.
Item 7C moved to the business agenda. All right. Petitions and communications are next. And this evening we have 3 items. The first presentation this evening is about the Great American Picnic festivities, scheduled to take place on Sunday, July 4th at Greenville County Commons Park. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Good evening, council. We'd like to welcome Kay Gazaway. She is the events manager. She's going to walk us through this super exciting evening of fun that all of us have been very much looking forward to for about 18 months. No pressure. Ms. Gasaway.
Can you hear me? Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city managers. I am Kay Gasaway, your community events coordinator, and I truly am very happy to be here tonight to talk about 4th of July. We are all so excited to invite you and the residents of Broomfield to come celebrate together on Sunday, July the 4th, at the Broomfield County Commons Park for the Great American Picnic and fireworks. We will, but first, before that happens, you all have a very important softball game to play at 12 noon at Northmore Park against the senior softball team. So I'm wishing you best of luck against that talented group. But once you're done, please come on over to the County Commons Park. All the fun starts at 5 o'clock. We have jumping castles and face painting. We have food vendors and beer gardens. There'll be 2 different food courts this year to help spread out the crowds and hopefully reduce the amount of time waiting in line. The main pavilion, we're gonna have things like grilled burgers and hamburger and pizza, kettle corn, and down on the lawn on the west side, we're gonna have Texas barbecue and brats and shaved ice, all kinds of goodies. And of course, backed by popular demand is the beer garden hosted by the Broomfield Chamber of Commerce. So bring your ID and everything's $5 cash at the door. Then the really cute bike parade starts to line up at 5:30 down at the South Red Pod, and they take off at 5:45. Everyone is invited to decorate a bike and participate and be part of that ride around the park. And if you do, you get a free pass to the day for a day. That's pretty fun. And at 6:15, council, we invite you to come to the city council tent and to do a greet with the community and to hand out some pins to our residents. The tent is just south of the main pavilion up by the children's playground equipment. We'll meet you there. We have some great musical lineups. Some of Broomfield's favorites are coming back for this year. 6 o'clock is the 17th Avenue All-Stars. They're a nationally ranked a cappella group. They're going to perform some of their top 40 hits. And then at 7:15 is that 80s band, which always draws a big Broomfield crowd. So we're excited about that. They will play until about 9:15 or 9:30, which is the time when we start to assess the weather with our launch team and decide how the fireworks will go. This is the kind of the serious part of the festival because weather is always a big component of the event. If there's rain or wind concerns and the launch crew has wants to delay, we will delay up until 10 p.m. So we can possibly shoot as late as 10. If it goes past 10 p.m., then we will cancel the fireworks for this year. But I know it's going to be perfect weather and we're going to have an awesome show and then go off at 9:30. Historically, we draw 10 to 15,000 guests this event. So you can imagine parking gets tight really fast. We will encourage anyone that has accessibility needs to bring their ADA placards, and they can park on the west side of the pavilion, between the pavilion and the Sheridan Boulevard. There will be a special parking lot there. Everyone else, we encourage to use the shuttle system. Free shuttle buses, they'll be running continuously from Legacy High School. Starts at 5 o'clock and runs until we get the last person out of the park around 11 o'clock. The only thing new about that this year is if you ride the shuttle, we do need you to wear a mask on the bus. That's the bus rules this year. So you catch the bus at Legacy Gazebo. It is a very easy way to get to and from the event. And lastly, you can follow along for all the updates on the Great American Picnic and Fireworks on any of the Broomfield social media accounts. I'm here. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gasaway. We will now proceed with public comment. Does any member of the public have comments about this agenda item? And I'm looking online, I don't see any. Do any member of council have any comment? Well, thank you very much. We're looking forward to finally getting back together.
It'll be a great night. Thank you.
Thank you. The second presentation this evening is a review of Broomfield's 2020 annual financial report from Reuben Brown, LLP. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor Pro Tem Brenda Ritchie. CFO. Council has been having many conversations with regard to finance. We certainly appreciate Ruben Brown coming last week and giving us such a detailed information report. This one is not as detailed this evening, but more of an overview for what we've already discussed. Ms. Ritchie will introduce us, and then representatives from Ruben Brown are here to assist with questions and also finishing the presentation. Ms. Ritchie.
I appreciate that, Manager Hoffman. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Fred Ritchie, CFO. As Ms. Hoffman indicated, so last week we discussed the overview of our 2020 financials with our auditors. So Ruben Brown and Nat Moreno is here to provide that overview. And as a reminder, it's our compliance with our internal controls as well as the government.
Thank you. I'm a little disappointed I don't get another half an hour to talk about your audit, even though what we have allotted. So as we talked about in great detail last week during the study session, we did perform the audit of Broomfield for 2020. That audit included auditing the financial statements of the city and county of Broomfield, but also a compliance audit on how the city and county of Broomfield receives and expends federal funds. The federal funds we audited for this year were the coronavirus relief funds. That's kind of an important relief fund for many entities, including Broomfield. I'm happy to report again, as I did last week, that Broomfield earned a unmodified or a clean opinion on the financial statements and on the compliance audit with federal expenditures. So great job. Other than that, not a lot to talk through today. You've earned an unmodified or clean opinion the last several years, and that's always a good thing because your financials are not only stated correctly at year end, but there's a high likelihood that what you're doing throughout the year is accurate and complete as well. So that's important. Any questions from council or any?
We'll first start with public comments. Does any member of the public have any comments on this agenda item? I don't see any online, so do any council members have any comments? Councilmember Tessier.
I just want to make a quick comment and thank Brenda and her team for, keeping us on track and continued to have a clean record. So appreciate Room team for being here. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate bringing up service to Broomfield.
The final item this evening under petitions and communications is former Mayor Quinn's remarks. Mr. Quinn announced his resignation effective May 23rd, 2021. Council is excited to have Mayor Quinn here this evening. Before we pass the microphone to Mr. Quinn, I'd like to remind him of the speaking time limits. Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Thank you. And I did prepare my comments. I practiced them 3 or 4 times a day because I do think it's important to do this. You can start the clock down, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, distinguished members of council, honorable staff, it was a true honor serving with you these past 18 months. We faced more challenges than I can count, but I'm very proud of what we accomplished working as a team. Comprehensive oil and gas regulations, sweeping ordinances, addressing sustainability and inclusive housing, not to mention taking on COVID-19 as a reelected Board of Health. My political career was never about politics. It was always about public service. Shortly after moving to the Boulder County portion of Broomfield in 1981, I wanted to give back to the community. At first, my public service involved the Boulder Valley School District and Boulder County's Parks and Open Space Advisory Committee. In 1994, Broomfield passed its open space tax, and the 1995 master plan set the aspirational goal of 40% open lands. As a public service, I wanted to help achieve that goal, so I got immersed in Broomfield's open space program in 1999, serving on OSTAC until 2007. It has been a blast working with several councils, numerous staff, OSTAC, and hundreds of others in this community, achieving this goal as a community together. I'm confident that this council and the next councils will get us to the 40% open lands goal. It became political, I suppose, when I decided to expand my public service to include public policy. Encouraged by bipartisan groups, I decided to run for mayor in 2007. In those days, you knew the political affiliation of council members, but it rarely mattered. The only criteria for supporting a PUD, an ordinance or resolution was what was best for Broomfield. And it was that philosophy that has made Broomfield a truly unique city, and I may add, a city that runs a county. Last month, my political service came to an end. It had nothing to do with any of you. It was a personal decision that Carlene and I made together. And tonight, I am telling you, it was the right decision. In my mind, I'm leaving with only one ball in the air, and it has now been tossed to you. And that is the debt for Windy Gap. Yeah, council, it is your role to fully understand the impact that this debt will have on the city's overall balance sheet, and in particular, on future water rates. Work diligently with staff and our consultants, and run downside cases, and do what a CPA would do, be skeptical of everything you see. Carlene and I are now fully retired in Broomfield, the city you are entrusted with and that we love. With that, Carlene and I say good night and good luck.
We'll now proceed with public comments. Does any member of the public have comments on this agenda item? Please walk to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Jim Benson. I live in Anthem Ranch. I'm very disappointed with Mayor Quinn resigning when he did. The election is in November. And the other thing which was very disturbing is not only did he resign suddenly, but in the process of that resignation, he endorsed a candidate to succeed him. The right thing to do would have been to not endorse anybody and let the voters decide, or to have an election to determine who was going to be mayor for the next several months. When Mayor Quinn came to Camden Ranch and we had a candidate for him, you stole his experience, the great job that he did when he was mayor previously, and indeed several members of council, including the previous mayor, who are of a different political persuasion, actually endorsed him for mayor, and he went very narrowly. Mayor Quinn did not operate as a middle of the road person. He was pulled and allowed himself to be pulled far left. And lastly, I would say that probably the most disappointing action, not only of Mayor Quinn, but also of this council, was the attempt to remove Jennifer Robinson, the clerk, county clerk, 4 weeks before the presidential election. And she survived that by 1 vote. Thank you, Council Member Tessier, for saving her for that. You ended up getting her in the end, and she's moved out of state. But that was very questionable. And just because she sent an email to a subordinate, I wonder what the staff thinks now. The last thing, which is not directly related to him, but is related to you, is why are so many people leaving? Why are so many senior staff members leaving? Some of these people I worked with on the comprehensive plan, and they're now gone. Very, very disturbing. You know, are you really remaking Broomfield? We really don't want Broomfield remade. We want Broomfield to remain the great community that it is. Thank you very much.
Evening. My name is Bradley Beck. I'm with the North Metro Business Alliance. We're located at 870 East Fulton Avenue, Fort Lufton, Colorado, 80621. And I'm here representing the voice of business in the Broomfield community. My granddaughter Shelby was staying with us when we were recently in Nashville. She said she wanted to stay because they had free breakfast and a pool that was free. And, it was a 9-year-old's biggest fantasy. And I said, Shelby, don't thank me yet. I may charge you for this privilege of staying with us in a hotel room. And she looked at me and said, Grandpa, why would you charge me? I'm not a battery. Well, it's funny how kids think and how they process information. Kids are really funny when they respond differently to how you expect them. And so too goes at our local city council and how they respond, charging forward with making the decision on how the next mayor will be chosen. There's deep concern in the business community, those I represent, on how the appointment of a new mayor will affect them and their future. The vacancy of the former mayor, who resigned on May 23rd, giving you, the city council, 30 days to fill the vacancy by a majority vote, feels uneasy. We're concerned about how the tone will be set for Broomfield. Partnerships should be win-win. The North Metro Business Alliance and their members are uncertain on how the appointment of this new mayor will impact business in this community. It's really a shame that businesses even have to be concerned, or even citizens. No elected representative or a council should matter so much that local businesses are concerned about who is in power. Yet businesses have to pay attention. Your decision tonight impacts their livelihood. Our local government should be in the business of protecting the rights of all citizens, businesses included. Consider your decision tonight to appoint a mayor as if all your constituents feel included. That's the Broomfield way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Point of order, Mayor. Just before we have more comments, I would like to make sure that we're addressing the subject at hand, which is petitions and communications, 4C, and the former mayor's Pat Quinn's remarks. So we will get into the appointment of mayor to fill vacancy, which is item 11A. So if we can have comments, that would be my suggestion. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councilmember Schaaf. You're correct. So if you would like to comment about Mayor Quinn's comments, and now is the time. But if you would like to comment on the mayor appointment, that would be now 11A because we weren't able to move it up. So just be patient and we'll get to item 11A. Mr. Kramer?
Good evening. My name is Andy Kramer, and I also live in Anthem Ranch. And my wife Judy and I have been living there since 2006. And I just wanted to say, as I know many of you are probably feeling and would say as well, that Mayor Pat Quinn has done a wonderful job serving this community. His remark about not being in politics for political purposes, but for the purpose of public service, I think rings so very true. I think his work with open space has really made a difference. Many of us probably participated in the survey that came out a month or so ago. And one of the things we were asked to do was pick 3 things that come to your mind about Broomfield. And I picked friendly, safe, and clean. And I think all of those things kind of fit into open space. We have a place that we can meet, we can recreate, we can exchange glad tidings, so to speak. And I think that's come about because Mayor Quinn and also Mayor Ahrens always had Broomfield primarily in mind. They wanted to make things better for the citizens, whether we've been here for 20, 30 years, or even just the last 15. So I would like to say, as not only on behalf of myself, but for others at Anthem Ranch who hold the same view, thank you, Mayor Quinn, and we wish you and Carlene the very best on your new journey known as retirement.
Hello, Kristen Logan from Ward 4. I came into this season with Mayor Quinn being at the head of our council somewhat skeptical. We didn't always see eye to eye. But I can say that I never felt more included in this session. I've had the opportunity to speak to council. I've had the opportunity to speak directly with the mayor. And I think that says something. And when he says that it's not about politics, I believe it. And I'm grateful for that. So good luck in your retirement and thank you for being inclusive.
Hi, my name is Neil Allaire, and this is so great to be in person. Yeah, I just want to thank Mayor Quinn. I was going to wait, I'm saving other comments for later, but honestly, I think what was said earlier is unconscionable. Mayor Quinn and I have worked together on some things. We've definitely worked against each other on some things in the enterprise even. And Mayor Quinn is a good example of why Broomfield is a good town. And yeah, and I'll just leave it at that. Thanks, Pat. Enjoy your bike and good luck. Gravel bike.
Are there any other comments?
Hi, I'm Anne Marie Cleary of Lackamora, and I have been around the council for a while, and I too want to thank Mayor Pat Quinn in this difficult time. And somehow, some way, in this last bit where you served, this council is together. And although that everyone had differences, you brought the team together, and this council elected our pro tem Skylene back in the day. And a lot of other cities, that's usually what stands when the mayor has to leave for his own personal reasons, which we don't know what they are, but we do want to thank you for your service. And I want to thank council and Mayor Pro Tem Castrata, and for the two of you working together. Whatever is going on is seamless to us at this current moment, and we appreciate that as citizens, especially in the reawakening after COVID and the time during COVID. So thank you.
Thank you. Next is council member comments. Any comments from council? Council member Lyman.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I've known Pat Quinn for, it was 2009, as I recall. We met over a very contentious issue that I think most of them has completely forgotten about. But it sure was contentious at that point in time. I know I'm not going to name names or bring it up or anything. Let's let the past be in the past. And Pat was a newly elected mayor at that point, and he cast the tie-breaking vote on what, as I said, was a very contentious issue. And he cast it on the side that I didn't want him to cast it on. But that started a conversation that has continued on to this day. And Pat, you and I do not always, we don't, I wouldn't even say often agree on things, but I cherish the friendship that I have with you. And I cherish the fact that we walk a lot. We walk, he walks with me with my two stupid dogs. And we get out there and we hash things through. And when we're done, I know I won't speak for him, but I always have a better understanding of his way of thinking, his point of view, and how we can reach a place of maybe not consensus, maybe not compromise, but something that works for everybody. And I deeply appreciate that about Pat. And I hope that, I'm not going to be on council much longer no matter what. So I hope that we as a body and we as a community can take that idea and continue to honor former Mayor Quinn's legacy and take that into the future. I'd like to believe that I have played a small part in that, but Pat, thank you. Thank you for always being willing to talk, for always listening well, and for always keeping Broomfield's best interests at heart. As you and I have discussed a couple different times, Pat's one of the people that, and I hope this never happens, if he gets cut, he bleeds Broomfield blue. So, thank you.
Councilmember Thacier.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So Pat, I just wanted to say thank you for your service, your dedication and commitment to Broomfield. What you say you're going to do, you do. your integrity is there, and, you know, we don't need to attack people in this, conversation. This isn't about ad hominem attacks, this is about loving Broomfield, and, I think you have that love, and we see it, and yes, Broomfield Blue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Henkel?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Pat, you and I remember first sitting down with you when I was running for office. And it's just amazing to me how much we were at odds. And then after that, we really started to understand each other better. And I think a lot of that was there was new laws that were changing around oil and gas. And I think I appreciate the fact that you really wanted to understand those laws, and you wanted to understand how to protect Broomfield out of those laws. And it took a while. It took a while for me to learn too. But you've also brought a lot of historical knowledge to Broomfield. And I always remember that you've always been very fair and also surprising. You know, when you broke the tie, I did cry that night. I really do appreciate just your efforts, just to really listen to consensus. And you always did a really good job at the end, really pulling everything together and making sure that everyone felt heard. So thank you, Mayor Quinn, former Mayor Quinn, for all of your efforts and support.
Councilmember Lindstedt?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I met Mayor Quinn when I was in middle school. I know some of you are thinking that was, 2 weeks ago, but it was about 15 years ago. It was actually the first person I voted for when I was 18 and graduating from Broomfield High School. So it's kind of surreal to have served on a city council with him through what has been probably the most difficult time in our state, in our community's history recently through this pandemic. And all I really have to say is thank you. Thank you for setting the example of what it means to be genuine and what it means to have integrity in public service. You were a real mentor to me and to many of us up here. And all I can say is thank you. I mean, your work on behalf of this community is really, really incredible. And your legacy is something that I think many people up here and across the community will look to for years to come. So thank you and enjoy retirement.
Anyone else? Well, I would just like to thank you, Mayor Quinn. You made this last few months on council work. When times got really hard, you brought us all together. And I think you brought out the best in everyone with your inclusivity and fairness. And we hope to do you proud. Continue on. Thank you.
You guys have fun tonight.
All right, we will move to general public comment next. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on matters other than items already listed on this evening's agenda. As mentioned earlier, the public may comment both in person or via phone. If you're joining via phone and want to be placed in the queue for comment, please call 855-695-3744 and press *3 to be placed in the queue. If you're joining in person, please line up behind the podium. Public comments will be limited to the time limits outlined earlier. So if anyone has any general public comments on items not on the agenda, now's the time. Seeing none and none online, we'll move on to community and event updates. Council's community and event updates are next. Does any member of council have any update this evening? Councilmember Lyman.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Some of you may recall several years ago, 2, 3, 4 years ago, council was contacted, Sue was contacted by a man named Rick Neerman, whose wife at that point in time was in the Bloomfield Skilled Nursing Facility. And Mr. Neerman felt at the time that he wanted to set up a program to take some of the seniors there at the Bloomfield Skilled Nursing across the street, across Sheridan and around the county commons, those lovely paths on the commons, in golf carts. And it was a new thought. There was a lot of discussion about it. There was a lot of back and forth, but council eventually did give Mr. Neerman permission to do that. This is, he's up and running again. He now serves not only Bloomfield Skilled Nursing, but Legends there on Lowell and Highland Trail. And he invited me, I've kept in touch with him. He invited me out today. I didn't actually get to see him go around with any seniors, but I did see their setup there at the pavilion, and he emailed me earlier today. They took about 60 seniors, 60 seniors around today. He actually is trying to get into the city of Westminster and city of Thornton to do something similar. So I will be contacting staff for help contacting those municipalities to get him out there. But it's a wonderful program. It gets seniors out in the open space, in the open air, a change of scenery that they would not otherwise have. So he didn't have too many brochures and cards, but I will pass them down for you to look at, and I will forward the email with the photos for the day to the rest of council. So what an incredible, wonderful opportunity to get people out that otherwise wouldn't have an opportunity. So I'm thrilled to be able to support him in this, and yay, go with it. Thank you.
Councilmember Kathy.
Just to add, it's called, his business is called Kathy's Carts.
Thank you.
And his tagline is Smiles for Miles. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Any other council member event update? Councilmember Scott?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I guess this happened a while ago, but it seems like it happened just yesterday. Brouhaha. Thank you to the city staff for all of your work, especially Clay Shuck and the Brookfield community. It was a wonderful event. It was so great to be out in Arista with all of you, celebrating our community, drinking beer, enjoying the food trucks, enjoying the music, enjoying the lawn games. It was truly a wonderful event, and it was kind of one of those first opportunities in which we all started to gather. So I look forward to the 4th of July, but wanted to thank staff for all of your work on that event.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, council's consideration of the consent agenda is next. We will review tonight's agenda in two parts, as item 7F is a request for an executive session and requires a separate motion. Earlier this evening, Councilmember Anderson requested that item 7C be removed from the consent agenda. We will review this item at the conclusion of the council business portion, and will continue with tonight's consent agenda. Following the clerk's reading of consent agenda items 7A, 7B, 7D, 7E, and 11E, we will ask for public comment. Will the clerk please read agenda items 7A, 7B, 7D, 7E, and 11E by title?
7A, approval of minutes from regular meeting of June 8, 2021. 7B, resolution number 2021-120, authorizing and approving the purchase of sodium hypochlorite for water, wastewater, and reclaimed water treatment. And resolution number 2021-121, authorizing and approving the purchase of polymer for water, wastewater, and reclaimed water treatment. 7D is ordinance number 2150, amending section 1-12-020 of the Broomfield Municipal Code relating to the general penalty to reduce to 364 days the maximum potential term of imprisonment for any act that is prohibited or declared to be unlawful by the Broomfield Municipal Code. First reading. 7E is resolution number 2021-92, approving an amendment to the council procedures and rules of order to establish a process for submission of amendments and amending the timing for the distribution of the agenda. 11E is ordinance number 2155, providing for the submission of a ballot question to the registered electors at the November 2nd, 2021 coordinated election, at which a question shall be placed on the ballot concerning the use of a ranked voting method to elect future mayor and council members of the city and county of Broomfield, first reading.
Thank you. We'll now proceed with public comments. Does any member of the public have comments on these agenda items? We'll start with in-person public comment. If there's anyone who'd like to be heard, please come to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Next is public comment via phone, and I don't see anyone on the line there. So does any council member have any comments on these agenda items? Councilmember Lim.
I had a question on the memo for item 7E. I support the resolution, but there was a note that giving this advance notice on amendments would give residents time to reply and partake in the process. And I'm not seeing how that would necessarily be the case. It seems, I agree, it would be giving council members greater advance notice of the amendments, but is there going to be some kind of procedure where the public will receive notification once that amendment is proposed by Monday at noon, or is that not true?
Ms. Rogers.
Thank you, Councilmember Lim, for that question. There's two thoughts with that item. A council member could make their own amendments known throughout their own channels, especially on legislative matters. We're not talking anything quasi-judicial. So a council member could share with their email groups, with their social media groups, what their amendments that they plan to bring. Additionally, staff, depending on the timing of the amendment, staff may be able to reference it in one of the mechanisms and platforms that staff uses to get out information to the public. It's all depending on the timing. If it is coming in at 11:59 on Monday, it's going to be a little bit harder than if we get them maybe the Friday or the Thursday before. But I think the intent is, if we can, we will try to notify the public that amendments are coming.
Okay, thank you. That's good that we're going to try to fit that in there, but it won't necessarily be a standard process. Okay, thanks.
Any other council comments? Is there a motion that the recommendations contained in the staff reports for agenda items 7A, 7B, 7D, 7E, and 11E be approved?
So moved.
Councilmember Shaft, is there a second? Councilmember Tessier? All in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Council's consideration of item 7F is next. Will the clerk please read item 7F by title?
Request for executive session for legal advice regarding extraction, oil and gas leak litigation.
We'll now proceed with public comments. Seeing none again, does any member of council have any comments on this agenda item? Before asking the city and county attorney to read the motion, I want to remind council that requests for executive sessions require an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the quorum present. Will the city and county attorney please read the recommended motion?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. That an executive session be held on June 29th, 2021, after the conclusion of council's study session for the purpose of receiving legal advice regarding extraction, oil and gas litigation and future operations as permitted by CRS section 24-6-4024B.
Is there a motion? Councilmember Shaft?
So moved.
Second. Councilmember Lim? All in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. There is no business before, we have to call the roll, right? Will the clerk please call the roll? Yes, thank you. What are we doing? No, for the executive session. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Moving on. There is no business before the Board of Social Services this evening. This evening, we have a COVID-19 update for the Board of Health's review. The meeting of the Board of Health is called to order. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll for the Board of Health.
Anderson,
Here.
Castriata,
Here.
Bruin,
Here.
Hinkle,
Here.
Jaworski,
Here.
Law Evans. Here. Lynn. Here. Lundstedt.
Here.
Shat.
Here.
Tessier.
The quorum is present. Board members have a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Jason Bowling, Director of Public Health. As council knows, and some of the public, we do have a pretty thorough COVID update every other Monday afternoon. We are pleased to indicate that that has been reduced from every Monday afternoon to every other, simply because of the trends that we're seeing in COVID. Certainly, we're hoping that this will be a once a month and then non-existent. And Jason can actually focus on so many other great things that public health can do other than COVID. Mr. Bowling.
Yeah, that's definitely my hope. I'm going to hit a couple of the key highlights that came out of yesterday's in-depth session with council. One is what we're seeing in Colorado is that cases and their hospitalizations are going down. That's great news. That's what we want to continue to see. Secondly, we're seeing the same thing in Broomfield, that our cases and percent positivity are continuing to decline, and that's a sustained decline. That's exactly what we want. The reason for that is vaccines are working. Vaccines are highly effective. What we're seeing in Broomfield is over 68% of our population has initiated or completed the vaccines. 78% of the eligible population has initiated or completed their vaccines. We're, I believe, in the top third in the whole entire state as far as those that have completed their vaccinations. And so it speaks to the community really stepping up and getting their vaccines. The area of concern, though, is the Delta variant. What we're seeing, and that's the variant that came from India, is it's starting to take hold both in the United States. Currently, it's at 10%. There's a projection that it could become the dominant strain in the future. Here in Colorado, we're seeing more widespread of the Delta variant, specifically in geographic regions along the western slope in the San Luis Valley. And then lastly, the reason that this is so concerning is the fact that this variant is highly transmissible. It's 50% more transmissible than the B117 or the UK variant. The other thing is that the level of severity is greater with this variant. Hospitalization risk is double. And then the thing that we're always looking at with these variants is vaccine effectiveness. Our concern is that there will potentially be a variant that the vaccines don't work as well against. And thankfully, what we're seeing, though, is that the vaccines, especially if you're fully vaccinated, are working against this variant. We have shown that if you've received your full 2 doses, that there's an 88% effectiveness against the variant from Pfizer. We expect that to also play out with the Moderna vaccine and Johnson & Johnson. However, though, if you've only received 1 dose of the vaccine, it's only 33% effective. And that's one thing that we're going to be emphasizing in our community messaging going out is the importance of not just getting 1 dose of the vaccine, but getting that second dose and getting completely vaccinated. And then lastly, what I would say is just we need to keep in mind that not all of our population has been vaccinated yet for various reasons. And I think we just have to be mindful and thoughtful as we're talking to community members. What are those reasons why that they may not have been vaccinated? And secondly, we have children that just are not eligible to be vaccinated. So in those specific situations, we're still working very closely with those childcare settings and school districts. What does this look like to keep some public health mitigation measures in place? And what we discussed yesterday in the in-depth briefing and this messaging we've been putting out is what are those risk levels if you are vaccinated, and what are some of the prevention measures that you can take? So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Volling. We'll now proceed with public comments. Does any member of the public have comments on this agenda item? Seeing none. Does any member of council have any comments? All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's great to see everybody in person.
I know, thanks for the good news. There is no business before the Broomfield Housing Authority this evening. Oh, I'm supposed to adjourn the board now. All right. There's no business before the Broomfield Housing Authority this evening. Our first item under council business this evening is the appointment of the mayor to fill the current vacancy. Seeing as I have submitted a letter of interest in this position, I'm going to step aside from being the presiding officer on this item. I'll turn it over to Nancy Rogers, our city and county attorney, to discuss the next steps. Ms. Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. If I may, Mayor Pro Tem, point of order. I beg council's concurrence in recusing myself. I understand from Ms. Rogers that it's her advice as our city and county attorney that since, if I understand you correctly, Nancy, since there is a potential increase in pay, not a lot, but there's an increase from council member to mayor, or for that matter, from Mayor Pro Tem to mayor, I do not want to even have a hint of conflict of interest. So with council's concurrence, I shall take the conference room and recuse myself unless there's an objection. Thank you.
Ms. Rogers, do we have to leave the council chambers?
I don't believe you need to leave the chambers, Councilmember Law Evans. So to catch our folks in the crowd up to speed, council members are asked to recuse themselves from a vote on anything they have a pecuniary interest. And it was my advice to both Mayor Pro Tem Castriata and Councilmember Law Evans that there is an increase in salary. That's a pecuniary interest, and it would be up to them if they wanted to recuse themselves. I don't think recusal means that you, as a listening member of the public, have to leave the discussion. Have to leave the room. I think you can listen in on the discussion, either from the dais or if you want to take a seat in the gallery.
May I respond, Mayor Pro Tem?
Of course, I think I gave up the chair.
Well, all right, you respond. That's not the custom we've had in the past.
I understand.
I think I would prefer to adhere to the custom we've had in the past, in the conference room.
And I think that's totally acceptable as well. But I want you to know that it would not be appropriate for council to mandate that you have to leave, because you would be a member of the public that has a right, just like everybody, to listen in on the meeting.
Fair enough. Well, like I say, I think I'm going to stick with council past custom and head in the conference room. So thank you all.
Councilmember Law Evans, if I could just, before you leave, because we actually have an item before we get to the election of the mayoral vote, which is what Mayor Pro Tem Castriata was talking about we need a presiding officer. We're in a very, very odd circumstance here, and the charter only sets forth that a vacancy has to be filled within 30 days, but it doesn't lay out the procedures. So staff, my office, the clerk's office, the city manager's office has been working hard to try to find a procedure. Now we have the additional challenges that we don't have a mayor right now, and the Mayor Pro Tem is the presiding officer after he resigned. Now she can't be presiding over an election where she's a candidate. Who do we get to the presiding officer? Rule 2.1 of the council rules is the closest thing that we have to address this situation, which provides that if the mayor and the Mayor Pro Tem are absent, then council votes on a presiding officer. I believe as an administrative matter, Councilmember Law Evans, you could stay in for that and also vote, because it's an administrative matter. We need someone to preside over the election. So I believe both you and Mayor Pro Tem could vote on that matter. So that's sort of where we're at. And in trying to figure out how do we tee that up for your vote, that landed to me. So I'm sort of presiding on this one issue right now. Are there any questions before we get started? Just the presiding officer part. I will ask for nominations in a second. I do want you to know that the clerk has drafted a script for whoever the presiding officer is going to be. Just for this item, we wouldn't leave you
hanging, trying to come up with what to say on your own. We do have a script and a procedure to follow. And if needed, we can take a break and I can brief you on that before we get started again. So with that, we'll open it up for nominations. Would anybody like to nominate someone to be the presiding officer for the mayoral vote?
I'll nominate Councilmember Tessier.
Are there, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Does it need a second?
It does not need a second, thank you. Councilmember Tessier, do you accept that nomination? Are there any other nominations, again, for the presiding officer alone? Great, we'll close out the nominations. Are there any objections to Councilmember Tessier being the presiding officer for the mayoral vote? Seeing none, then we'll move forward with Councilmember Tessier being the presiding officer. If I could have our galleys patience for a second, I will, if we can have a sidebar.
Thanks for your patience. And thanks for the script.
Thank you. Okay, so as the presiding officer, thank you, City and County Attorney Rogers. We will now be taking nominations for mayor. The city received 2 letters of interest by the stated deadline from duly qualified individuals, Eileen Castriata and Liz Law Evans. Council is utilizing the procedures for boards and commissions for this election to be consistent with council's prior practice, and we will ask for nominations. Are there any nominations? And as a reminder, do not require a second and may be declined by the individual nominated. So any nominations? Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Councilmember Tessier. Acting Chair Tessier. I would like to nominate Mayor Pro Tem Gavin Castriata.
Councilmember Grimm? Sure, so even though they have applied, we need to nominate? Okay, so I nominate Councilmember Liz Law Evans. And I do have a point of order that I need to ask for legal interpretation in regards to the interest of the council members voting tonight. I know that there is an interest associated with them voting for themselves due to the salary, but I want to ask for legal interpretation of how the council members that have endorsed the candidate can legally vote. Because there's definitely an interest for them, for their candidate to be appointed mayor. So there is a gain for them for their mayor to be appointed that they have publicly endorsed.
Thank you, Councilmember Groom, for that question. The ethics code is pretty specific as to financial gain, a pecuniary gain, and something that would have an appearance of impropriety. In this situation, council members are in an odd posture because the charter mandates that it is council that votes for a mayor when you have a mayoral vacancy. And it would be my legal advice on the spot right now that to partake in that vote, knowing that there are party affiliations, personal affiliations, interest in having certain candidates win, as there are in any election, I don't believe that would be something that would violate the city's ethics code. However, as I've said in other times when we've talked about that issue, if a council member believes that recusal is necessary for either an appearance of impropriety issue or because of some pecuniary gain, it is incumbent on that council member to recuse themselves. So it would be individual for the council member, but I do not believe it's required.
So it would be required, even though there would be a gain for, and a several member, a gain, a domino effect gain even for the mayor to be appointed and then a council member to be appointed. So the one party would have a gain. So it's not only an ethical position. I think the city needs to understand the legal position for a publicly endorsed candidate from a council member to be voting. Because if they're publicly endorsing them, how would they have the ability to vote in a non-opinionated manner, right? So I'm questioning the legal aspects of it, not just the ethical.
I'm not quite following you on the legal aspects. The party's impact. The party doesn't have any rights in Broomfield's code or charter related to the ethics code. It is individual.
Well, I'm just stating how they would gain. So the council members would have a gain.
Okay, and I think that gain, as you're describing it, is not a gain that would violate the ethics code as it's written.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing no further nominations, we will proceed to public comment. Does anyone from the public have comments on this agenda item? Not done all jump at once. All right, please state your, let me make sure I say this right. Hang on just a sec. In-person public comment, if there's anyone who would like to be heard, please.
Point of order. Was there a nomination for the other candidate?
Yes.
Okay. Guys. So we got our audience coming up. Next, so please state your name and neighborhood for the record, please. Thanks for your patience, Nick.
Madam Councilmember Tessier, presiding officer of this. What a spot for you all to be in. And I'd like to just remind you all and the public in general that there is no set succession plan for a mayoral appointment. The charter specifically says that if the mayor vacates the office inside 180 days of a general election, former Mayor Quinn resigned 163 days before the general election, that the council has 30 days to appoint a mayor. The mayor pro tem is not the vice mayor. This is a process for you all to consider. In fact, I mentioned the last time I was at this podium, I remember when members of this council tried to oust the mayor pro tem in 2017 when he was term limited. So I'd like to remind you that. To former Mayor Quinn, I wish Mayor Quinn a long and healthy retirement. But before we get there, I'd like to do a quick history lesson, perhaps just of the last 6 months. In the last 6 months, Mayor Quinn has announced that he wasn't going to run for re-election in November. His close personal friend and confidant, Kevin Jacobs, applied to run for mayor. He then subsequently retracted his nomination for mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Castriata announced that she was going to run for mayor. A couple of weeks later, Mayor Quinn resigned 163 days from the general election. This is important because the politicization that's happening on this council is very apparent to many in our community. And if it weren't so serious, I'm looking at these things and I'm thinking that it's all very juvenile. And then Mayor Quinn actually said something that struck me during his comments. He said that he's entrusting you all with Broomfield. And it made me think of not juvenile, the word that I'm describing this council as, but actually the first century Roman poet, Juvenal, who asked the question, "Case custodes, case custodit, ipsos custodes," and that is, who's going to guard the guardians? And right now, I'm looking at 9 individuals, and many of whom are considered to be a part of what is self-proclaimed the hypermajority, running away with the power. And who's going to guard Broomfield from that? This process needs to be deliberate, it needs to be intentional, and you all owe it to look very, very closely at an impartial mayor for the next 6 months until the people of Broomfield have an opportunity to speak at the election at the ballot box. Thank you very much.
Please state your name and the neighborhood for the record.
Good evening, James Marshall, I live in Brandywine. Presiding officer, SCA and council. You know, when I'm thinking about who I'm going to vote for and who I'm looking for in the public service, I'm looking for someone who is truly a public servant, who really cares about the community, who cares about the residents, who cares about making everybody's life better. You know, it's my number one choice is not about who I agree with politically on everything, because that's never going to happen. It's an issue, obviously, you're going to vote for somebody you agree with, but I want somebody who's going to have character, who's going to work tirelessly for the people of the community, who's going to be passionate about the issues, and who's not going to run away from the tough decisions. You know, the previous speaker mentioned the fact that there's no automatic succession policy. You know, if the president steps down, we have a vice president. If the governor steps down, we have a lieutenant governor. Even Westminster, whose mayor recently resigned, has a succession policy in place where pro tem automatically becomes the mayor. You know, that's not the way in Broomfield, and it's probably something that we should probably address in the future, in my opinion. I've known Guyleen Casciata for a little over 4 years, since she was running for council last time. In that time, I've gotten to know her, not just as my friend, but as someone who truly cares about this community, someone who works hard, and not just a council member, this last 2 years in the pandemic, you know, I've had to deal with my own family and myself through this pandemic and keeping us safe and, you know, fed and bills and everything else. I can't imagine the pressure that's been on you all to deal with all the needs of the community. And I have watched Guyleen work tirelessly for this community. And for that reason, I support her as the next mayor for the next few months until the election. She's truly a public servant. She truly works hard for this community. And there's no one else that I believe should be representing her. Thank you.
I don't want to be a downer, but this is not an appropriate time to be clapping after each speaker. Sorry. So please keep it professional and no clapping. Thanks. Please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record.
My name is Andy Kramer, and I live in the Anthem Ranch neighborhood. And just 2 things. I wish I had paid more attention to my Latin instructor that Mr. Cleveland was quoting. And second, what Attorney Nancy Rogers said is that we are really in an odd posture. And I think everyone is of goodwill to try to make the best of that odd posture. Presiding Officer Tessier, council members, and city managers, staff, thank you for the opportunity to briefly speak this evening. Over the past 8 years, I've had casual conversations with Council Member Law Evans' constituents in Ward 1. And personally, I've had opportunities to speak with Council Member Law Evans. These constituents remark that Councilmember Law Evans is receptive to hearing their concerns and acting forcefully upon them. That's commendable and attests to Councilmember Law Evans's dedication to Ward 1 and to all of Broomfield. Also, during the past 4 years, I've had similar conversations with Mayor Pro Tem Castriata's constituents in Ward 5. What stands out is her dedication to the most vulnerable in her ward. A case in point involved the residents of the Front Range mobile home community along Midway. These residents brought their concerns to Councilmember Castriata. They were being badly treated by the managers and owners of this mobile home park. Councilmember Castriata, along with City Council and the mayor, addressed these concerns in an effective and meaningful manner. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, there are now more vulnerable Broomfield residents whose needs require attention. I believe that Mayor Pro Tem Castriata is best positioned to provide leadership in this critical area. I urge Council to appoint Mayor Pro Tem Castriata to the position of interim mayor for the city and county of Broomfield. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you. Please state your name and neighborhood for the record, Mr. Huntsman.
Yeah, I'm back. Jim Huntsman, Anthem Ranch. One thing I have is a question about procedure. Are we going to actually hear from the candidates, or is there no need for the candidates to speak on their behalf? Kind of unusual to have an election where you can't hear from the candidates.
If I may, Councilmember, thank you. That is a good question. The process that staff had suggested for council to use did not include comment by the candidates. Similar to an election where you don't get to campaign at the place where people are doing the votes. We try to be consistent with that process. But as I said, there's really no set requirement in law and code or in charter regarding that issue.
Well, it does seem very odd that a number of members of council who are going to vote have already made an endorsement. So in a way, it sounds like this is a foregone conclusion, which it really should not be. I think respect ought to be given to both candidates. I think Liz Law Evans is in a better position to do that. She's not running for re-election. She's term limited. She is not a candidate. I am disturbed by what Mayor Quinn did in immediately endorsing the Mayor Pro Tem. As I'm sure you know, she is a very left-wing person. Has met with AOC, who is not exactly my idea of a person who would fit to Broomfield. So I would encourage council to really give Liz Law Evans a chance rather than making this a foregone conclusion and an anointment. Thank you very much.
May I please state your name and neighborhood for the record? You have 3 minutes.
Susan Sad, Broomfield Heights. I have a serious case of SATOP, and that stands for sick and tired of politics. Everything seems political, even these nonpartisan positions up here. Sporting events are political, a simple social media post is political, even promotional labels that we see in the products we buy. It's unhealthy, it's tense. What's happening to our society, it's not healthy, and we don't trust our local government or our national government. It saddens me. Many have lost trust in our institutions and our elected leaders. We need to get this back. We have seen a mayoral candidate drop out and elected officials step aside. And this has led many of us to lose confidence and trust. And here we are watching our council members pick a new mayor. Currently, we have 2 people that have submitted their candidacy for interim mayor. One is running in November and is our mayor pro tem. The other is a term limited person, Liz Law Evans, who is not running and has no political aspirations right now. Doesn't it seem that we should pick the nonpartisan choice? That would be Liz Law Evans. She has proved herself to be a nonpartisan and a good person who has served our community. Please note, the other candidate for mayor in November, Councilwoman Kimberly Groom of Ward 4, chose not to run for interim mayor. And according to the Broomfield Enterprise, this was because it was too political. What is best for Broomfield is transparency and fairness. I want to be able to choose my next mayor at the election box. I want transparency to know as much about both candidates that are running, including their voting records. And often a mayor does not vote. I want the process to be fair, not providing the advantage of being an incumbent when the public didn't vote for you to be an incumbent. Please consider your choice carefully. Broomfield is watching. Thank you.
Thank you. One more council member, Beacom. Please state your name and your neighborhood for the record.
David Beacom, Rogers. People tonight have already stated most of the things that I thought about talking about. But I thought it was very interesting that former Mayor Quinn stated that one of the things that he always leaned towards was what's best for Broomfield. And I think that's the question that we have tonight. What is going to be best for Broomfield? Not what's going to be best for one political party or one group of people, and what's going to be best for me and the rest of us that are citizens and residents of Broomfield. Liz Law Evans has given almost 8 full years of service to Broomfield, and she served prior to that also. And she's a neutral. She will listen to both sides, and she won't have a preconceived idea that she's not willing to change the facts. My experience with the other candidate doesn't necessarily show that. So I would, and I mean, for the mayor position tonight, for the mayor race that's coming up in November, I think that we need to sit and think, what makes it more fair, more equitable for the citizens of Broomfield than to have somebody that is not politically inclined to be the mayor. We already have a very well-trained Mayor Pro Tem. She can continue doing that and assist the new temporary mayor for the last 6 months or roughly on that. That probably would be the best solution. But I can't tell people on the council how to vote. I just know that the optics of this whole process has been that the group in power wants more power and more control. And that is going to be a very important factor over the next few months, regardless of the outcome tonight. So I would suggest that the best solution that this council could do is to elect tonight Liz Law Evans as the mayor for the completion of former Mayor Quinn's term. Thank you.
Thank you. Come up to the podium and please state your name and neighborhood for the record.
Dave Walden, Highland Park. We began tonight's meeting, as all such meetings are begun, by citing the pledge. As we were collectively citing it, I couldn't help but stop on the word indivisible. Indivisible. Probably everyone in this room is aware of what has happened to the discourse and the politics in our country. It has never been so divided since the Civil War. The level of cynicism and skepticism is unmatched in my lifetime. Now, why is that the case?
It's the case because the perception of most of the electorate, doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, the perception is that the people that they elect to conduct public affairs are engaged in an affair of an entirely different kind. So I came here tonight to recommend, no, urge that you not add to that cynicism and skepticism and give the perception that it's politics as usual in Broomfield. And at a minimum, I would urge that you not elect someone who has already announced they wish to be mayor elected by the people. That's tilting the playing field unfairly, and everyone is watching, as the previous speaker said. And with that, at the risk of being cited as a politician, I yield the remainder of my time.
Hi, John, please state your name and your neighborhood for the record.
Hi, my name is John Bard. I live in Acton Ranch. When I first heard there was an opening, I thought it would be interesting to have somebody in there temporarily just for that event. But also thought the mayor terms are short, only 2 years. And it does improve your abilities to be mayor the longer amount of time. There is some practice required. There's a lot of learning curve, even though you've been in city council. The longer you're there, the more practice. And I trust Guylaine. I think she is open to other people's comments, just not necessarily her own beliefs. And so I think she is truthful to the people, and I think she will make this become a pleasant time. There's the controversies, they happen naturally, but she is capable of turning those into at least a pleasant conversation. And I do think that having somebody determined to be in that position, they're missing some of the public response. You know, they are not, I think part of the risk of continuing to be in office is you have to pay more attention to your public. So the term person can make decisions that may not be equal to what the public wants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Hi, now, please state your name and neighborhood for the record. 3 minutes.
Hi again. My name is Neil Allaire. I live in Bloomfield Heights, First Filing. So I think probably the main issue you guys should be considering is making this a smooth transition. We've been through the roughest year in forever in Bloomfield. Guylaine has worked alongside Pat for almost 2 years now, stepping in for him when he wasn't available. You know, she's been training on the job to do this. And I think that's crucial as we finish dealing with COVID and the economy getting back on step and all of that. The talk about council shouldn't make this decision or that decision. The rules say you guys choose who's going to be mayor tonight. That's the rule. And the council that sits up here was elected by your constituents. And I can't remember back 4 years ago, but 2 years ago, the 3 Dems and the 2 unaffiliated that were elected averaged about a 60% vote. That's a 20% margin. That's a pretty good indication that the people want you here to do the things the council is supposed to do, including choosing the mayor to fill in the rest of Pat's term. So, thank you. Do your job.
Thank you. This
and please state your name and neighborhood for the record.
Kristen Logan, Anthem Highlands. I'm here listening tonight to a lot of comments, and I can really empathize with people because I remember standing in front of previous councils 2 weeks before a vote, being a citizen who was a part of a group putting together a change to our charter because we didn't like the way our charter was currently worded. And 2 weeks before that critical vote, the council rushed a vote on a project that shaped the course of many of our lives. And it's really unfortunate these things happen. But the reality is I was told then, this is how it works. We elected people based upon the actions that have happened over the last however many years. There's been landslide votes. And I believe the people of Broomfield have spoken, and they've entrusted you all to do what is needed in situations like this. And I think that through the years of the approachability of council and the ease of being able to come and work with people and speak with people, and I believe that our Mayor Pro Tem has been someone who has always been approachable on all different sides. And even if there's not an agreement, even within the same party, there's different factions and people don't always agree. It doesn't have to be Republican versus Democrat. Sometimes it's Democrat versus Democrat or unaffiliated versus Democrat or Republican. But the fact remains the same, that there's one person that I can say out of the two people looking for this who has always been inclusive, who has always listened, who has never turned her back on a member of the public when they were speaking. And I think the choice is clear of what we need to do tonight. And I hope this council upholds the will of the voters that put you into office and you make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you. And then please state your name for the record in your neighborhood.
I'm Sandy Anderson and I'm from the Broadlands. I did not plan on speaking today, and I don't know all the formalities of addressing the, what is it called? The acting person tonight for this particular, we don't know. Yeah. So respectfully.
Thank you.
Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to say though to all of you is that I am so impressed and thankful on how the council handled the last, year and a half. COVID did a number on many of us in lots of different ways. We've had failed businesses, health issues, mental health issues. You guys kept our city and county running seamlessly. You made it so that we knew what was going on. We had an opportunity to speak. We were able to feel taken care of and that you had our best interests in mind. So first of all, that's phenomenal, and thank you all for that. The second thing that I'd like to say is that you, as the body that was elected to represent us, each of our wards chose you. We entrusted you, we've asked for your leadership, and we entrusted a mayor to lead the group. The mayor has resigned, and there's a process that is put in place. Maybe it's not as complete as you would have liked. It was unexpected, but the process is that we're entrusting you again. We entrusted you with our health and welfare and our well-being in the city. We're entrusting you now to make this decision, this temporary decision, until the full election happens. That being said, we also have our mayor who has been leading this group and has put his trust in somebody who feels that they are ready and able to take us forward and lead us. I'm entrusted in that trust too. So it's like layer upon layer from my perspective that Diane is in the place of leadership, that she is in place in this council, can take us seamlessly through the next 5 months. And then as the vote happens for mayor, the majority of our citizens will speak and we'll see what happens the next time. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Vanderkoy, please state your name and neighborhood for the record.
My name is Lois Vanderkoy, and I'm unprepared. I'm from Broomfield Heights. I just first of all, wanted to say how great it is to see all of you in person and all of you as well. And I know, our community is partisan and there's a lot of division. And I'm sad that, some of our Republican friends tonight feel like they're losing power rather than looking at what this council and Mayor Quinn have done for the community. They got us through a really rough patch, and they supported businesses, they supported health, they did policy work that really helped us reach this, pretty good place in terms of the COVID virus. And so really, I encourage you all to think about what service is. And I view all of these people up here as being public servants. And we elected them, and they're doing the best they can. It's excruciating, hard, and complex work. And they are standing by their principles, their beliefs, and also their heart, and really serving. So I want to thank all of you. I want to thank staff as well. Jason, wow, you really led us. And there are others there too, I'm sure, and Jennifer and Abby, and Nancy too. You jumped in towards the end there. And it's still troubled waters, but the troubled waters is kind of stirring things up and creating a better community, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vanderpool. Hello, please step on up and state your name and your neighborhood, please.
Lizzie Lario, and I'm from Wild and I just have to say, it's really good to be back and see everybody in person. It's been a long, long time. I also want to echo the sentiment of thanks and gratitude to everybody for the hard work. Jason, your report tonight and our vaccination numbers and everything are amazing. I have a family function to go to, so I have to be very careful. I am here tonight, so thank you all. Sorry, thank you. I'm very gracious. I am here tonight to speak in favor of Mayor Pro Tem Castriota. She has proven herself to be an incredibly effective leader. And I'm hearing a lot of comments about things not being fair, but truly what's fair to Broomfield is to have a seamless transition right now. That's what we need. And echoing what other people have said, Mayor Pro Tem Castriota has worked in tandem and so well with former Mayor Quinn. And that's what we need is someone coming out of COVID and everything else we're dealing with that can keep us running smoothly. Mayor Pro Tem Castriota is caring, she's engaged, she does have Broomfield best interest at heart, and I believe she bleeds blue as well. She listens to all points of view. She's approachable and is a solid, inclusive leader. She understands the task at hand, the time commitment being mayor will require, as well as the responsibilities needed to effectively run a city. As Mayor Pro Tem for the duration of the COVID crisis, she did not shy away from the task at hand, demonstrating incredible leadership. Mayor Pro Tem Castriota has consistently shown up to meetings prepared with an open mind and ready to discuss, ready to get her hands dirty and listen. At meetings, she listens intently and participates without getting distracted or doing anything else. She takes her commitment to the city of Broomfield seriously, and as stated, is prepared for all meetings, not just council meetings, it's more than that. She's direct and efficient while also being engaging and makes people feel valued. This is an incredible leadership skill. What I'm saying tonight just represents some of the many reasons why I think you are more than qualified to be, why Mayor Pro Tem Castriota is more than qualified and is an excellent choice to serve as mayor right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lario. Hello, please state your name for the record and your neighborhood, please.
Hi, Anne Marie Cleary, Latimore. I'm standing here before all of you also in support, and I know a lot of my neighbors that are paying attention and listening, and I just want to state my support for Mayor Pro Tem Brian Castrata, and I want to say thank you for all of you guys for your representation. For all of us, this is an important night. It's funny to find out that there's something that's missing, that you guys already voted unanimously for her to serve in an instance if something were to happen at Pat Quinn. And that was huge. And we're at that instance right now. So we're not trying to like change anything. We're just trying to fill in the gaps that were left open. It's kind of how Broomfield is, right? So I feel excited. I'm moving forward. I feel really grateful that through these difficult times, what happened has been seamless and in fact exciting as a citizen to wake up and be part of all this. And I really thank you, each and every one of you guys in council, for all that you've been doing. And I hope tonight is just, continuation of support. Thank you. And representation.
Thank you, Ms. Clary. Roxy, it's good to see you. Please state your name and your neighborhood for the record.
Roxy Jewel Lockmore. I would like Law Evans to be voted in tonight. I think Castrata is good at doing her job she's at right now. She should fulfill her job that she's at right now. Everybody will vote later on whether it should change or not, or who is going to become the mayor. That's just my opinion. As I watch this council, sometimes I wonder if it's nothing but oil and gas. So please keep your mind straight and keep that out of it.
Thank you, Roxy. She was our 15th, and our next speaker has 2 minutes. Please come up to the podium, state your name and your neighborhood for the record, please.
My name is Deb Simpson. I live in Brandywine. I think the wise choice is to pick Ms. Law Evans this evening. It's not that Ms. Castrata isn't qualified. She obviously is. I've been sitting her watching you run this meeting very efficiently. But the thing that's really important to me is that I feel like it signals to the city of Broomfield council picking the next mayor, and I just don't feel like that's right. And I think that having Ms. Law Evans fill out the rest of Mr. Quinn's term would be more neutral, and I feel more comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone else? Seeing none here, we do have just one. Mr. Seth Thomas, please state your name and neighborhood for the record.
Flatiron's part of build. Can everybody hear me okay? So I'm wanting to just put it out there that I think that
a moment of awkwardness while we wait for Seth. The reason that we're all looking to the back of the room is that there's our IT person that handles all of the CRL.
Should I tell Seth anything? Do we need to hit *3 or?
Jake's getting them right now.
Of course he is.
It's abound. Community of Broomfield.
Yeah, sorry, little bit of trouble there. So I just want to support Guyleen Castrata for mayor. I think she has done excellent job as mayor pro tem. She was selected in this role to fill in the absence of a mayor. We are at that point. And I think that she's the right person to lead us forward.
Thank you. And seeing no other public comments online, let's see. We will now proceed with council's vote to elect the mayor.
When your name is called by the clerk, please indicate the person you are voting for as mayor. And I will ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Anderson,
Castriata.
Castriata, Broom, Law Evans, Hinkle,
Castriata.
Jezerski,
Castriata.
Lim,
Castriata.
Lindstedt,
Castriata.
Schaff,
Castriata.
Tessier.
Castriata. Okay. Okay, so, Granny Castriata has been elected as mayor. Congratulations. Do you accept this position and in doing so resign as mayor pro tem
Yes, I accept.
and council member? Do we invite, Ms. Butler back in? So, proceeding now, Judge Amy Bachman is here to swear in the new mayor. Judge Bachman.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Mayor Alex, you'll join me.
Judge Bachman, thank you. I must tell you that it's the first time that I've actually been able to see council since I was actually appointed by council as municipal judge. I've seen him in person, and all took place over Zoom. So this is really a pleasure for me as well to see everyone. So good evening, council members. All right, and with that, we now proceed with the oath of office. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay. Please raise your right hand. I, Darlene Castriata,
I, Darlene Castriata,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution,
that I will support the Constitution,
the laws of the United States and the state of Colorado,
the laws of the United States and the state of Colorado,
the charter and ordinances of the city and county of Broomfield,
the charter and ordinances of the city and county of Broomfield,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of mayor to which I have been appointed.
that I will faithfully perform the duties of mayor to which I have been appointed.
Perfect. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Judge Bachman.
Thank you.
Now we have a whole meeting.
Yeah, there were a couple of comments made during public comment, and I just wanted to ask our senior attorney, Rogers, to clarify the timing of all of this.
Thank you. There was a comment about the timing, because there, as I mentioned, there isn't much in charter about this, but there is some specificity about if the resignation happens outside of 180 days, you have to call a special election. If it's within 180 days, then you see the process that was followed tonight. The next election is November 2nd. 180 days is May 6th from that point. Mayor Quinn's resignation was effective May 23rd. So we were within that 180 days, which is why there was no special election called, and we did the process that you saw this evening. So Mr. Clemens, I'm more than happy to discuss this offline with you further.
163 is what I said. I think it's almost exactly
Oh.
163 days.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you.
I might not have been.
I just wanted to make
appreciate
sure
the clarification.
that we did not need to do the special
Yes, it was
election.
163 days. So
Thank you.
definitely within 180.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well,
Thank
seeing
you,
that it is
Councilmember.
almost 8 o'clock, I say we take a 10-minute recess and come back and resume the meeting. If everybody's okay with that, we can recess now. Okay, 7:56.
The Access Live event is in music hold. music hold ended.
Oh, okay.
So the election this evening created a vacancy for Mayor Pro Tem, and therefore, council will need to fill this vacancy. Staff is prepared to facilitate the vote for Mayor Pro Tem this evening if there are no objections. Seeing none, before we proceed with council's selection of a new Mayor Pro Tem, we also wanted to mention that tonight's election also created a council vacancy. City and County Attorney Rogers will discuss the procedure for filling the council vacancy during her attorney's report later this evening. Going to the Mayor Pro Tem script. There's a lot going on with today's script. It is not a normal script, so my apologies. The next order of business is the selection of a Mayor Pro Tem. The Mayor Pro Tem shall be selected by a majority of the council members present at tonight's meeting. In accordance with council's procedures and rules of order, any member of the council may make a nomination. Nominations do not require a second, and the individual nominated may decline. If none of the nominees receive a majority vote of the council present this evening on the first ballot, then the candidate receiving the fewest votes will be dropped from the voting. This process will continue until one candidate receives a majority vote to be elected Mayor Pro Tem. At that point, a motion to appoint the top vote getter as Mayor Pro Tem would be in order. Does any member of the council have any questions regarding the election procedures? I saw that, so I wasn't sure. Okay. So no questions, are there, does any member of the council, it says, are there any other nominations on the script? So it kind of goes from, it's a little.
Just remember that line.
Okay.
After the nominations come in.
Okay, so. Am I taking nomination? All right. Councilmember Shah.
Thank you, Mayor Castriota. I would like to nominate Stan Jezierski for Mayor Pro Tem.
All right. Councilmember Jezierski. Are there any other nominations? Wow. Well, what happens now? That's easy.
We proceed to public comment on this item, Mayor.
Oh, okay, there we go. Seeing no further nominations, we will proceed to public comment. Does any member of the public have any comment on this agenda item? I don't see any in person or in the queue. We will now proceed with council's vote to elect a Mayor Pro Tem, which will be facilitated electronically. We don't need that with one.
With only one nomination, Mayor, we don't need to proceed electronically, and you can do it by consent to ask if there's any objections to Councilmember Jezierski being appointed Mayor Pro Tem. If there is an objection, then the clerk can call roll.
Oh, that works. Are there any objections to Councilmember Jezierski being appointed Mayor Pro Tem? Seeing none, all in favor? I don't vote anymore. Then you can for this. Well, then it's unanimous. Congratulations, Councilmember Jezierski. Mayor Pro Tem Jezierski. Okay, so I can skip you that, then we're moving back to the meeting. And I need to find my place. I know, regular meeting time, y'all. We're getting there. Thank you for your patience. I'm scrolling. Our next item under council business this evening is the public hearing of proposed resolution number 2021-115, authorizing the Interpark PUD Plan Fourth Amendment. I'll now declare the public hearing open. We will follow the city's standard public hearing procedures. First, staff will present a summary of the proposal. Next, we'll have the applicant's presentation if applicable. Then we'll ask for public comments, and finally, comments from the applicant and questions from council members. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I will ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Mayor Castriota. Anna Bertazetti, Director of Planning, will introduce this item, and also Principal Planner Judy Harmon is in the office, in the audience as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. If we could have the next slide, please. The applicant, United Properties LLC, is requesting a text amendment to the Interpark PUD Planned Unit Development Plan to add light industrial uses as a permitted use on one property within the Interpark development. They would also be adding data center as an allowable additional use under the light industrial land use category for this property. The request is being made based on market demand for light industrial uses. We can have the next slide, please. This property is located at 11280 West Reed Place at the northeast corner of West 112th Avenue and Reedway. And it is identified within the PUD plan as PA1, Planning Area 1. The surrounding properties in Broomfield are also part of the Interpark PUD. To the north of the site are two existing light industrial flex buildings, and the lots immediately to the east are developed as a 7-Eleven, and there's also a car wash under construction. The city of Westminster is to the south of 112th Avenue, and Jefferson Academy is located west of the site. Next slide, please. The land use designation for this site is mixed-use commercial, and the proposed light industrial uses are consistent with this mixed-use commercial designation. Next slide. This drawing depicts the Interpark PUD plan boundaries. 112th Avenue is to the south, Main Street is to the east for orientation. Planning Area 1 includes Lot 1, Block 1, which is the property that would be affected by this PUD amendment. It is shown in the blue. Light industrial uses are already permitted to the north in Planning Area 2 as well as in Planning Area 4. So this would be adding those additional light industrial uses to this area as well as the business uses that are already there. Next slide, please. And in this slide, we have a list of the table of the existing approved business uses for the planning area. The proposed light industrial land uses are on the right-hand side of the table. Light industrial uses include research and development, plumbing and electrical shops, for example, printing services, and light manufacturing. The proposal would add those light industrial uses, including the data center, which is highlighted in yellow, and to that PA1 area. The development plan, urban renewal site plan approval is also required for this subject property. And the applicant has submitted a development review for the site plan, urban renewal site plan, which would be reviewed against this PUD amendment in the future. And public hearing would be required for that review. Next slide, please. The applicant has had two concept reviews regarding this property. The first was for the PUD plan amendment, the subject application this evening. And members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council at that time indicated support for the proposal. They noted the importance of continuing to work with Jefferson Academy, which is to the west, as I mentioned, and mitigating traffic impacts. In April, the City Council also reviewed a separate concept review for the site development plan, urban renewal site plan, and again, continue to voice support for the building and continuing to work with Jefferson Academy. They also noted that it's important to have a quality image along this gateway corridor into Broomfield for the sub-area plan. Next slide, please. The Land Use Review Commission reviewed this request during its meeting in May and voted 6-1, recommending approval. It was noted during that discussion that they would review the site development plan separately. Next slide, please. The City and County of Brimfield public hearing requirements were met for this project. Next slide. Staff identified these two key issues in regard to the proposed PUD amendment. They were the parking lot traffic truck access management and the gateway image along 112th Avenue. Both of these issues would really be concerns that will fall under whether these were business uses or light industrial uses, including the data center. And these are noted as outstanding key issues by staff because we are continuing to work with the developer to resolve these concurrent with a site development plan for a specific development. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is also here this evening and has a brief presentation to follow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bertanzetti. Next is the applicant's presentation. Please come to the podium and introduce yourself for the record before beginning your presentation. Just as we ask staff to keep presentations brief, we ask the same with applicants.
Absolutely. Good evening. I'm Megan Turner with United Properties. Great to be in person, as many have stated tonight. So thanks for hearing our application tonight. So just next slide, please. Really briefly about United Properties and what we do as a development company. We're a commercial developer located here in Denver. We've been here 16 years. We're over 100-year-old company. And we've got a long history on this project. We've owned it about 5 years now. And we're coming today with an application requesting an added use, a couple of added uses here just due to some hardships that we've experienced marketing the property for the previously approved uses. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So just real briefly here, because this was already discussed, but we actually were the applicant in 2017 for the PUD amendment that was requested then. Here, what we're requesting in planning area 1 is the light industrial use and a data center use to be added. And the light industrial uses are already identified and defined through the PUD that was completed in 2017. So really, it's a simple text amendment adding it to this particular section of the site. If you can go to the next slide, please. And like I mentioned previously, it's really due to this request is in order to activate the site right now due to market conditions that even COVID has exacerbated further. But we had previously been marketing the site for the commercial uses that we came in requesting approval on in 2017, which includes retail. Hotel was a big use that we were targeting, and those two uses have obviously been a challenge. So we have the 7-Eleven that's been open a couple of years, and now the car wash that's under construction, well underway there. But this is the last kind of remaining site on this property that we would love to be able to activate and bring jobs to Broomfield and kind of continue with the success that we had across the street. So we were the developer for the 2 industrial buildings across the street as well, and would propose and come in applying for a really similar kind of building. They're much smaller, but that will be forthcoming in our site development application. Next slide, please. And a couple of the items that we've discussed in detail with staff so far are, related to traffic and Jefferson Academy and the concerns surrounding, being so close to the school. We've had numerous conversations and have really worked with Jefferson Academy hand in hand through this entire development process, even starting in 2017 when we started the process. So we've had many conversations with the principal, Heather, there, and she attended our neighborhood meeting recently. And so we've had a really collaborative kind of discussion regarding parking and, traffic potential challenges with parents and students and how to work through that collectively. And so I think, we'll continue to do that and make sure that we're working hand in hand with the school. We want that collaboration to continue, and that's of utmost importance to us as well, to be a good neighbor to them. The traffic that is generated from light industrial uses here and data centers will essentially have very little traffic, probably the least traffic out of all potential uses, but light industrial specifically, the net difference in trips generated daily would be about 3,000 trips less than what is currently approved on the site. We are not asking to remove those other approved uses. We just rather are trying to provide flexibility in the zoning for the site so we can activate it as soon as possible for development. Next slide, please. And that is all of my presentation, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. We will now proceed with public comments. Does any member of the public have comments on this agenda item? We'll start first with in-person public comment. If there's anyone who'd like to be heard, please come to the podium, state your name and neighborhood for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, and seeing none online, well, I guess you don't really have any, or no final comments from the applicant because we'll proceed to council member questions. Questions from city council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any questions? All right, there being no further questions, the public hearing is closed. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2021-115. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2021-115 by title?
Resolution number 2021-115, authorizing and approving the Interpark PUD plan, Fourth Amendment to add light industrial uses and data center under the light industrial category to parcel 1, Interpark filing number 1, replat C, lot 1, block 1.
Is there a motion by a council member? Councilmember Lindsay.
I can do it real quick. I move to adopt resolution number 2021-115, recommending approval without conditions.
Is there a second, Councilmember Groom?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Groom? Yes. Hinkle?
Yes.
Jezerski?
Yes.
Law Evans?
Yes.
Lim?
Yes.
Lindstedt?
Yes.
Schaff?
Yes.
Tessier?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
I was waiting for my name. It's so weird. But that passes unanimously. All right. So congratulations. Thank you. Our next item under council business this evening is the public hearing of proposed resolution number 2021-114, authorizing Broomfield's submittal of the 2021 action plan for home and CDBG funds. I'll now declare the public hearing open. Am I on there?
No, yes, you are.
All right, take it away.
Housing manager Cheryl St. Clair is, no, she's looking at me like, what? Debbie. Well, there you go. Please introduce us to this item. Cheryl, just real quickly, because you won't be seeing Cheryl. Her last day is next Tuesday. However, she has, so I'm going to publicly say, which means she's locked in now. She has graciously agreed to enter into some conversations with us to ensure a smooth transition as we move into the housing conversation for contract, although we have agreed to have Cheryl take the entire month of July off before we enter any of those conversations. So we are deeply indebted to Cheryl and what she's been able to do and forever grateful. Deborah, I'm not stealing your thunder, so take it away, please. Thank you.
No problem. I'm Debbie Hughes. I'm the housing program specialist and I work with Cheryl. Next slide, please. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Presiding Officer, council members, and city manager. In September of 2008, Broomfield became an entitlement community. Basically, it means that Broomfield receives a direct award every year from community development block grant funds. And the primary goal is to assist low and moderate income families. And what we're going to be discussing tonight is the annual action plan, which is a requirement after receiving those funds. Next slide, please. What we do when we do an annual action plan is we review the prior year's goals and objectives determining who we've met with, and then we also put together what we project what that will happen in the future. So I'm just going to go over a little bit more detail that's on the board here. Our projected impact supports multiple goals listed in the comprehensive plan, such as affordable housing and economic vitality, sustainability, diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. Under housing rehabilitation, our single family and mobile home repair program, the single family repair program is $25,000 either deferred or forgivable 10-year loan at zero interest. The mobile home repair program is $6,000 at a 2-year forgivable loan, and we're projecting to serve 12 homes. Urgent home repairs are basically what they sound like. It is an urgent home repair: heating, electrical, plumbing, water, urgent accessibility, those types of things. And so we're planning on serving 10 homes. Preservation and development of affordable housing units. Basically that covers pre-development costs, demolition, clearance, site improvements, some code enforcement, offsite activities, and new construction is not eligible for these funds, or equipment and furnishings and regular or non-emergency direct payments of rent or utilities. And then the fourth bullet point is legal services. We're anticipating, we served population last year, and we're anticipating to serve about 15 additional households this year, especially with the moratorium being lifted. And the additional city council uses include rental assistance, homeless assistance, community investment, and economic development. Next slide. And basically this slide goes over all of the dollar amounts that are proposed. This year we received an allocation of $287,182. We're proposing to set aside $120,000 to home rehabilitation, $23,464 to urgent home repairs. With preservation and development, we're proposing to set aside $100,000. Colorado Legal Services, we're proposing to set aside $15,000. And within the guidelines of the CDBG funding, we were setting aside 10% for administrative funding. Next slide, please. Our current community needs, staff recommends continuing the following CDBG funded programs, which provide support to very low income residents. And in many times, this is the only funding source they have in order to make some repairs or possibly modify their house for accessibility. So the four topics are on the slide: the housing rehabilitation, mobile home, urgent home repairs, preservation and development, and legal services. Next slide. And so we are, the staff is requesting City Council's consideration of the proposed resolution number 2021-114 to authorize the submission of this 2021 HUD annual action plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Does that complete your presentation?
Yes, it does.
Well, welcome too, by the way.
Thank you very much. It's so good to see everyone in person.
I
So
know.
I started about 10 months ago, but I tell people that and they just kind of laugh.
You're new to us.
We're new. You're all new.
Thank you. We'll now proceed with public comments. Does any member of the public have comments on this agenda item? And I'm not seeing any online. So questions from City Council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. I don't think there's any amendments, but we'll start with Councilmember questions. Councilmember Hinkle.
I don't have too many questions other than I just really appreciated staff being really responsive to the people who have needed this program. So many times during COVID, things can get lost in the shuffle because we're so overloaded on our computers with emails. And our staff just, yeah, you guys have just been really wonderful. And I know I've sent a lot of emails with our Front Range Mobile Home residents who are worried about being evicted based on an awning, or they're worried about evicted, based on other things. And I just feel like it's super important. And it's always been an important program.
I serve on the board as well, and just making sure that they have 2 payment plans ahead. And, for the next couple of months, that they're going to be, thought of being evicted. So it's good. It's a good program to have, just to give them peace of mind and to sort of give them a leg up. And I know that our staff really works really closely with a lot of these residents to really give them a plan on how to spend and budget as well. So it's not just, an all-encompassing, hey, we're gonna help you here, we're gonna help you plan too, and we're gonna walk alongside you. So I really love that. And every time I get an email from a resident, I'm like, I got your back, because our staff has my back. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilmember Brown.
Yes, thank you. My question is in regarding the category of housing rehabilitation program. Does that include, maybe some of our seniors need to add ramps or accessibility into their homes? Is that the money bucket that we could support?
We can support
Those
that.
types of things?
Yes, Councilmember, we could support that through our urgent care program.
Oh, okay.
Or we could also, if there's extended items, you need a ramp, maybe you need the bathtub modified to be a walk-in shower, we can then switch it over to the single family rehab program or mobile home rehab program.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it, and welcome.
Thank you.
Any other Councilmember Shaw?
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Hughes, thank you for the presentation and welcome. It's good to see you as well. My question is regarding the mobile home rehabilitation. What projects do the CDBG funds typically cover for those for the mobile homes?
Well, this year we had started doing some, as Councilmember Hinkle mentioned, we're starting to help individuals do some awnings and some other things to prevent homelessness. But as far as the majority of the time, mobile home parks, we do interior and exterior types of modifications or repairs, basically, to the mobile home. And we make sure that their systems are in check as far as heat, water, plumbing, that type of thing, and electricity. But we've been doing, actually currently, we have a couple of windows that we're going to be replacing on one unit, and a front door that's no longer able to close. And so those are types of things that we do in mobile home parks.
Great. So this last year, we had the deep freeze happen over a couple days, and many of those mobile homes lost some plumbing and water pipe breaks. That would cover, the CDBG funds would cover those type of projects.
Yeah, as long as it's in the, as long as it's not the park's responsibility, as long as it's the resident's responsibility.
For sure. All right, great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. There being no further comments, the public hearing is closed. Next is council consideration of proposed resolution number 2021-114. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2021-114 by title?
Resolution number 2021-114, authorizing the submittal of the 2021 action plan for home and CDBG funds.
Is there a motion? Councilmember Hinkle.
Thank you, Mayor Castriota. That's hard to get used to as well. So I move that resolution number 2021-114 be adopted.
Is there a second? Councilmember Tessier? Thank you. Second. Thank you. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Oh, why did I'm not voting, I'm just. It's having to die hard. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And nobody yet, Ms. Sinclair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is the public hearing in council's consideration and second and final reading, proposed ordinance number 2153, designated Brookfield owned real property as roadway right of way. I'll now declare the public hearing open. We will follow the city's standard public hearing procedures as previously outlined. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. Katie Allen, City and County Engineer, will walk us through this item. Ms. Allen.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. So nice to be here in person with you tonight. Next slide, please. The roadway widening associated with Dillon Road and 144th Avenue required the purchase of 27 parcels for roadway right of way.
And then prior to 2018, we also had 3 additional parcels acquired for right of way along Dillon 144th and also adjacent on Sheridan Boulevard. In order to legally designate these 30 parcels as road right of way, the city is required to record a statement of right of way for the parcels. That's a lot of R's for me. This does not change the property ownership designation. Proposed ordinance number 2153, if approved, would authorize the designation of the parcels as roadway right of way dedicated to public use. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. We will now proceed with public comments. Does any member of the public have comments on this agenda item? Starting with in person? Nope. And none online. So questions from council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments to state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any questions? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2153. Will the clerk please read proposed ordinance number 2153 by title?
Ordinance number 2153, designating certain real property owned by the city and county of Broomfield as roadway, right-of-way, and dedicating such property to public use.
Thank you. Is there a motion by a council member? Councilmember Pelletier.
Thank you, Mayor Castriota. I move that ordinance number 2153 be adopted on second and final reading and published in full by title.
Is there a second? Councilmember Shah?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 11E was reviewed by council on the consent. So next is council's consideration on first reading. No, that did not. Hold on. I've got different scenarios for the different moves. So we're moving down. We're on 11F. We are awesome. Okay, our final item under council business this evening is proposed resolution number 2021-110, authorizing an IGA between Broomfield and Aspen Street Metropolitan District. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. John Hall, Director of Economic Vitality, will walk us through this item. I know that we have some questions from Councilmember Lim, which staff and Attorney Nancy Rogers, upon her return, will be happy to answer. Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Good to be here this evening. Next slide, please. For the record, I'm John Hall, Director of Economic Vitality and Development. I only have one slide for you this evening. Keep it simple. It summarizes why we think approval of the IGA makes sense, what the IGA does, and then what are some of the benefits of the IGA. So first and foremost, the IGA serves as a contract between Broomfield and the district and helps align the district with other approved development documents related to this project. Some of the specific aspects of the IGA are that it requires the district to dissolve itself when debt has been retired, requires the district to obtain Broomfield's consent prior to debt issuance, and limits any district debt to a maximum of $33.9 million. It also ensures that the district conducts its activities in accordance with the service plan and permits the district to perform development obligations for the developer. This allows Broomfield to enforce the mill rate caps and interest rate caps. It also ensures that residents receive detailed disclosures concerning the district, including assessment ratios, mill levies, and the impacts on tax bills. That concludes the presentation. Staff is happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. We will now proceed with public comments. Does any member of the public have any comments on this agenda item? Step to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record, please, and you have 3 minutes.
David Acton, I live in the Aspen Creek neighborhood. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members, and thank you for allowing me to speak on this agenda item. City Council is well aware of the concerns expressed over the past 2 years regarding the Dillon Point development and the associated Metro District. You've heard all the arguments, and I will not reiterate them here this evening. However, I do believe the consideration of this intergovernmental agreement provides an opportunity for compromise that has so far been elusive. The staff memo says, quote, the Metro District Service Plan requires that the district enter into an IGA. The memo also describes the benefits to Broomfield of having this approved. If the IGA must be approved and the service, in order for the service plan to be enforced, and some members of the council want it approved, then this is the time for compromise. We understand that amending the IGA is not the mechanism for making changes to the district operations or developers plan. I therefore ask that City Council disapprove the IGA this evening as a means to insist that the district make changes using the appropriate mechanisms. Jim Weeda, who runs the Metro District in question, came to City Council in 2001 and got his compromise restricting the homes on Starview Drive to single story when the Aspen Creek developer wanted something from council. It seems only appropriate that the same happen here. The 4 council members who voted against this IGA in February have articulated that neither they nor the community are against this project as a whole, but rather feel there are just too many asks by the Metro District and developer to deviate from the 20-year-old Aspen Creek PUD. Nothing has changed with the IGA between February and today. Council can make clear that the IGA will only pass if some compromise is made. Based on the debates over the past 2 years, there are many potential areas for compromise which would address concerns raised by residents across Broomfield. 3 examples include amend the service plan to expressly limit the number of total units in the development to the current value of 314. Even council members who voted for the plan were satisfied with the number 314, so there's no need to ever go beyond that. Second, amend the service plan to state that the district will never expand its boundaries. This would address nearby residents' concerns about the future intent of the district. Or 3, amend the site development plan and or PUD to limit the maximum building height to 33 or 35 feet. Some council members may be annoyed that this could prolong the development process, but honestly, that's a consequence of a lack of compromise by the developer earlier in this process. It's clear the development is already moving forward, so asking for amendments to the service plan or site development plan will not affect the completion date of the project. Even if the district and developer came to the City Council several years from now, trying to reverse the proposed restrictions, at least there would be ample evidence to that future City Council that those restrictions were made for good reason. Thank you all for your time and your service to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Acton. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this agenda item? Questions from City Council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any council questions? Councilmember Lim and then Groom.
Is this probably would be addressed to the developer? There's a representative here. Are the developer's finances tied to the approval of this IGA in any way?
Good evening, Council, Mayor Pro Tem, Carl Frunk, City Attorney. There is not a representative of the developer here this evening. There is a representative. Council for the Metro District is present. Who may be able to answer that, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Good evening, Council. I believe the question from Councilmember Lynn was whether the developer's finances are tied to the intergovernmental agreement. The developer is not a party to this agreement, so this is an agreement between the City and County of Broomfield and the Metropolitan District. So as far as I know, to the extent that the developer's finances are tied to the development within the district, there would be that connection as well with this intergovernmental agreement.
Okay, question for staff. Was it at one time represented to council that the developer's ability to get financing and how it would get financing would be impacted by whether or not they secured the Metro District secured the IGA.
Councilmember Lim, yeah, so that is a staff question. I'll take the first shot at it, and then Nancy can certainly, originally, before we began to look at the business development agreement in its totality, we did see a correlation between moving forward and approving the Metro District along with the overall financial plan. It wasn't until after the vote and follow-up conversations with the developer that those funds were not tied together. In fact, if council made the decision not to move forward with the Metro District tonight, it's already been, the shovels are in the ground, and the conversation tonight about the Metro District was at Broomfield's request. Not necessarily at the developer's request for the financing of that infrastructure. So really it's the safeguard portions for the city and county of Broomfield as we move forward to essentially, I don't want to say enforce, but certainly hold the Metro District accountable from beginning until end, with all of the conversations that we've had about Metro Districts in the past, rather than having an independent Metro District. So again, the IGA is really tied to Broomfield's follow-up request. Ms. Rogers, what am I missing?
I think you hit on all the pieces unless there's further questions.
Not on that. The memo itself points to the service plan as already containing protections on debt interest rate caps and maximum mill levies. So why does the city need the IGA to enforce the service plan?
I can take that, Councilmember Lim. Again, Carl Front, Senior Attorney. There have been court rulings that indicate that in order for a city to have standing within the court to enforce the terms of the service plan, an IGA needs to be in place to give them that contractual relationship with the district. And so the IGA before you tonight serves as that purpose, as a benefit to the city to give us that ability to enforce the service plan.
And then this is another legal question. So the IGA gives us oversight of the issuance of debt. What process would the city use to review that issuance of debt? What's the normal process? Have we objected to Metro District debt issuance in the past? And if the city objected to debt issuance and a Metro District issued it, would the city be apt to take a Metro District to court? And then would there be much risk to the city in that litigation?
There's several parts to that question. I will start with, to my knowledge, and in the 13 years I've been here with the city attorney's office, we have not objected to a financing plan that has come in from the Metro District. The procedure that happens is that by statute, they're required to submit notice of intent to issue bonds to the city, followed up within, I believe it's 14 days with a financing plan for the city to review. The city then has 45 days to either consent to that issuance or object to that issuance. And if neither of those things are done, it's assumed that the city has consented to the plan. In this instance, our understanding from speaking with district council today is that the bonds for this project issued in May of 2021, so just last month. The financing plan was submitted to the city in April of 2020. And then a follow-up plan was submitted in June, and that 45 days would have run well before the project had ever been approved. But city staff did review the financing plan at that time. It was within the terms of the service plan and no objection was made to it.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Groom?
Certainly, I think that answered a lot of my questions, but I wanted to ask, have we or have they ever set the mill levies of where they're going to start? So I know maximum is 50 mill levies, but do we know where what the estimated start mill levy would be for this district?
Thank you, Councilmember Groom. I do believe that they have pledged already for the debt service and it is up to the maximum. But if assessed values within the district are sufficient that they don't need the full mill levy to support the debt service payments, then the board could elect to impose a lower mill levy.
Okay, so they're gonna start at 50 mill levies. All right, thank you.
Any other council member questions?
All right, next is, sorry, Councilmember Shepp, I didn't see you.
That's all right. Thank you, Mayor. So this is more of a general question to Councilmember Lim's question. But after this item failed on February 11, 2021, due to lack of support of the 2/3 council, the feedback I heard from city staff was that staff supported this IGA and it was in the best interest for council to pass this for both Broomfield as well as the future residents of the development. So I'm curious, Councilmember Lim talked about the finances, but what is the benefit to the developer or Aspen Metro District, probably more specifically for this IGA? Is there a benefit to the Metro District for council's approval of this IGA?
Thank you, Councilmember Shepp. I can take that question. Nancy Rogers and I spoke with council for the district this morning on that question. And we're told by district council that there is not a benefit to the district from that. And that's in fact when we learned that the bonds had issued in May of this year. So the short answer is that there was no benefit to them of the IGA.
Okay, thank you for that. And then my next question is, this city and county manager Hoffman stated this agreement was not at the request of the developer, but there are a couple pieces in here, and I'm just kind of looking for clarification. The memo states the approved service plan requires the district enter into an intergovernmental agreement, and the memo goes on to say that the proposed IGA completes the relationship between the Aspen Street Metro District and Broomfield, and ensures the district aligns with the other approved development documents. So my question is, do these approved documents and service plan relate to the IGA at the insistence of the city or at the insistence of the Metro District?
Carl, I'm going to take that one at first, and then feel free to clarify. Councilmember Shepp, thanks for the question. When we circled back after it was clear that they were going to move forward, whether we had the Metro District or not, it was at our request that we enter into this IGA and then began the conversations of what those caveats looked like. It wasn't selling them or pitching them on the IGA. I mean, they're accustomed to entering into IGAs with regards to the Metro Districts. So there wasn't an insistence on either one of our parts, other than a mutual understanding of moving forward. This would be mutually beneficial for the community in which they are going to be developing.
Thank you. That's sufficient. That's all the questions I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Everybody get their first round. I'll go back to you, Councilmember Groom.
Thank you. I just had one more follow-up question. Since this is benefiting the city and getting it documented, what I'm hearing, because I really like Mr. Atkins, the resident that spoke, recommendation to use this as a compromise on some of the items that we really wanted, but it doesn't seem like we have any leverage. This is something that we want,
and it's not necessarily associated with the developer. So as far as getting any of those compromising items, and we have a negotiation position, I don't see that as far as I read through it after the comment was made to go back to negotiate.
That's correct.
Okay, darn it. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any other council member questions? All right, next is, Councilmember Anderson.
I appreciate that comment by Councilman Groom, and I guess if you could just summarize, Manager Hoffman, like in just a quick short summary of all that, why this is in the benefit of Broomfield to move forward, because we are revisiting something that we thought would provide some benefit to help us on those nuances that remained, and one quick summary on why we should be voting for this.
Certainly, I don't want to say that the ship sailed with the vote on everything other than the Metro District that requires 2/3 of a vote. Everything else on that particular development required a majority. When it came to the Metro District and it didn't secure the 2/3 vote, the development, as Mr. Front had indicated, they've already financed those bonds. So the conversation about a package deal, about nothing moving forward unless it all moved forward, wasn't the case. So again, it was staff after the fact to go back to the developer to say, we'd like to put it on the agenda. We want to be able to, so when we talk about alignment, that's the part of the alignment. Council's had a lot of questions, as has staff, with regards to Metro districts. We've seen where they work extremely well, and we've seen where they work, where they don't. Broomfield has not suffered at the hands of a Metro district, in staff's opinion, with regard to the finance. We all know that from a development perspective, infrastructure is cost prohibitive. It is the Metro districts that allow developments to move forward for that really expensive infrastructure. I don't know if we'll have a development now or in the future that doesn't have a Metro district that requires a large amount of infrastructure. That's how you fund it. So with the concerns of council and staff with regards to Metro districts, having oversight and partnership as we move forward with those various components of the when, the what, the why, the how, who's on the Metro district, what does the vote look like, what is that, the composition. Part of the agreement that the council discussed with the developer that they indicated they agreed to is that there will not be increases with the Metro district until it's a resident board. Oftentimes, you won't see that on a Metro district. They will not acquiesce to that. Again, so it's more of a partnership, knowing that this development is occurring in our community, and having any kind of partners when you're regarding the development, when they're in your backyard, is the ideal state. Does that answer your question, Councilmember Anderson?
Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2021-110. As a reminder, this item is an intergovernmental agreement and requires an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the quorum present. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2021-110 by title?
Resolution number 2021-110, authorizing and approving the intergovernmental agreement by and between the City and County of Broomfield and Aspen Street Metropolitan District.
Is there a motion by a Councilmember Hinkle? Oh, is there a motion? Okay, Councilmember Lindstedt.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that resolution number 2021-110 be adopted.
Is there a second? Councilmember Tessier.
Thank you. Second.
Is there any discussion? The amendment stuff, I'm just going past it. All right, all in favor? Oh, Councilmember Shaki, discussion?
I did.
I'm sorry.
That's all right, Mayor, no worries. So I do have a procedural question, and I considered whether or not to make this a point of order, but you had stated that it needs 2/3 council to pass the IGA, because we now have a council member that is now our mayor. With 2/3 of council, I just want to check my math. We now have 9 council members, so would we need 6 votes to pass this, or do we still need 7 votes to pass this?
That is a stumping question.
I'm sorry, I just thought that.
Very good
I
one.
did not think this was like 1 minute ago.
That's a good question.
Background music. Reading.
So section 16(2) says 2/3 vote of the entire council. Not entire council present or seated at the time, so I think it. Ooh. Hold, can I have a couple extra minutes, Ms.
Of
Mayor?
course, Ms.
Thank you.
Rogers. I know this is a new situation and we're figuring it out as we go.
Can we take a 5-minute recess or so?
I'm happy with that. 5-minute recess, everyone. We'll be back at 8:57.
The Access Live event is in music hold. Music hold ended.
We are, Mayor. IGAs must be approved by a 2/3 majority of the entire council. And in section 4.1 of the charter, entire council means those council members in office at the time the vote is taken. We have 9 council members in office at the time, 2/3 is 6.
That's wonderful. Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks for the extra time, and thank you to the brain trust that I consulted to.
All right, so return back to the vote. I believe that's where we were.
Point of order, Mayor.
Councilmember
I think we were still on discussion.
Okay, were you discussing? Did you have the floor? I think you did.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll keep the floor. No, and thank you to City County Attorney Rogers for the answers to that. I really didn't intend for it to be a curveball. But it was one of those that I started, well, I was listening to the mayor and talking about 2/3 of council, and this was the change that we just had today. So I wasn't sure if it was going to be 7 or 6. So I do appreciate that clarification. For this, when this project moved forward at the support of the majority of council, the sentiment from the developer was that they were going to continue to move forward regardless whether there was an IGA in place. And from what we've seen to date, that has been true. With staff's insistence that this is something that's needed for both Broomfield as well as for the future residents of this development. I am willing to support that notion by staff and want to support the decisions that council has made and continue to move forward. So I will be supporting this tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Shaw. Are there any other comments? Councilmember Lynn.
So I wanted to acknowledge the residents and their concerns that have been valid. They presented about this project from the beginning. After the developers received vested rights, there was more fuel added to the fire. When the landowner sold the vested rights to Wonderland Homes for $22.5 million. Now we have been told by staff that the developer has moved forward with this project regardless, and that we no longer have any way to prevent this or leverage in using this IGA to get any concessions from the developer. But I would like to point out that we do have some power in the future that I hope that we utilize if it's necessary. The residents are concerned that this Metro District will try to add to the property in the district later. The service plan provides that the district shall not alter its boundaries by inclusion of additional real property into the district boundaries without first providing written notice to Broomfield and to the city and county manager and to the city and county attorney.
So we certainly hope is that maybe into the future till that happens, that whoever is the city and county manager and the city and county attorney will use their full power of oversight over the Metro District debt. And finally, I hope that the future residents of that Metro District will quickly take over the Metro District Board so that they can have full control of their own neighborhood. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lynn. Is there any other discussion? Proceed to the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That passes unanimously. Next, our item earlier this evening, item 7C, was removed from the consent agenda. We'll review this item now. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Christine Francisconi, the Assistant City County Attorney, will introduce us to this item. Ms. Francisconi.
Good evening. Next slide, please. So the Mustang Tower that is located on this property has been in existence since 1991. It's a wireless communications facility that is on track to be abandoned filing number 4. It's operated by Verizon Wireless. And again, the tower and equipment that we're discussing this evening has been in place since 1991. Next slide, please. So what Verizon is seeking is to update the agreement for their on-site operations. The agreement that's currently in place has been in place since 1990 and does not reflect industry standards. So the updated agreement would provide for an increase in rent. There are limitations on replacement of equipment on site. There is mandatory radio frequency testing, and there is also a plan for restoration if the city does require Verizon to move the equipment in the future. Next slide. So Broomfield acquired this land in 2016 by dedication through the Anthem development. The land is designated open space, but was not included in the open space count that was required for the project. The PUD that council approved does allow for utility and communications equipment on site, and rent from the agreement, if council so decides, may be deposited in the open space fund. Next slide. So we have a couple of photos to show you. Here is a location of the tower. It's near Lowell and West 152nd. The street directly south is, I believe, Irving. Next slide, please. And here are some photos taken of the site. And they depict also two other things that are located on the site. The water tower that also has other wireless communications items on it, and there is a second tower as well, and those are separate from this agreement tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Francisconi. We will now proceed with public comments. Does any member of the public have comments on this agenda item? I don't see any. Questions from City Council or next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2021-111. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2021-111 by title?
Resolution number 2021-111, acknowledging and approving an agreement by and between the city and county of Broomfield and Cellco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless.
Is there a motion by a council member? Councilmember Shea.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that resolution number 2021-111 be adopted.
Is there a second? Councilmember Lindsay.
Second.
Are there any discussion? Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. And I just want to note that I recognize that this is less than the 24 hours in advance, and you want to, and I will try to do better on bringing them this forward quicker, more timely. But I did want to, this is kind of piggybacked off some questions that Councilmember Lim had raised asked some questions and it just got me thinking about the concerns, and this is not going to just be, I don't think, for this particular site going forward, but there's so many concerns over 5G and as technology moves forward. And so I asked staff if the interference section of the contract could be modified to include a requirement that radio frequency compliance testing be required for any change in technology at the Mustang Tower, and I think this is something that we should consider for other locations. And per staff's response, and this is thank you to our staff for reaching out to Verizon this quickly. Verizon indicated that they could perform, that they do perform radio frequency testing when modifications are made to equipment at the facilities, and that they are amenable to adopting language to the agreement to require such testing. So the amendment I'm going to propose would require the testing should any protocol and testing change by the cell provider. And this is very proposal language. Okay, so I move to amend paragraph 8C of the wireless communications agreement between the City and County of Broomfield and the Cellco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless to read. And do I need to read the full thing or just the amended language?
Probably just the amended language.
So if we go to the.
We do the within 30 days.
So if we go halfway down that paragraph, within 30 days of commencing operations of the site, we would add this additional text or the installation of equipment modifications, including addition of new frequencies. And then back to the original language, company shall at its expense provide city with a report from a qualified radio frequency engineer certifying that the towering company equipment is operating within the federal standards for maximum permitted exposure to our emissions. And the rest remains the same. I'm done.
Do we have that on the screen? I'm guessing not because it came in so late.
Correct.
Okay, does anybody need it to?
Maybe what might be helpful is if Ms. Francis County or Ms. Rogers could indicate exactly what the amendment would do that is not in the agreement already. It sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is.
So currently the agreement provides for the city to be able to request a report every 3 years based on testing, in addition to an initial report, I believe it's within 30 days of this agreement. This adds a requirement that when Verizon makes any sort of modification to their equipment, including addition of frequencies, they also have to submit a report to us of the testing the radio frequency emissions.
All right, well, Councilmember Anderson made a motion for an amendment. Is there a second? Councilmember Lim?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the amendment? Councilmember Shaw?
Thank you, Mayor. So just to clarify, this language was agreed to by Verizon as well. This isn't just us, city staff doing this, but this was agreed to by Verizon.
Yes, it was. I spoke to Verizon's attorney earlier today, and we also have a representative here.
Great. All right, that's all the questions I have.
All right, Councilmember Winston.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have would this be the only cell tower in Broomfield with language like this in our agreement?
Yes, I believe it is the only one. The most recent one we did was in December, and we are continually updating the language in the sort of template agreement we have to reflect the industry standards and requirements. And Broomfield has only a very small handful of towers on its own property. So this is the most recent one we're seeing, and we do have another one coming at some point, and we will be requesting more language.
Would it be more appropriate, I guess, maybe this would be a question for Ms. Rogers, to do in a, I mean, I'm fine with the amendment, but in a separate ordinance that affects things? Or do we have to do this every single time we have one of these contracts come forward?
Councilmember Lindstad, there is provisions in the code addressing wireless tower facilities, so we could look at amending it in that code. I do think Ms. Francis Connie brings up a good point. When we have existing agreements, we also would probably have to amend those agreements as well. So we might see both.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure we're doing things simply and don't have a whole mess of different agreements. So, that's, my only question. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hinkle?
Thank you. And I think Councilmember Lindstedt stole one of my questions. I thought, where's the power in this, right? So if we hit a certain threshold on radio frequency, my first question is, are we hitting a certain frequency? Are we looking for something? And are we hitting a certain frequency and or radio frequencies or how many? And then on top of that, what are the repercussions if we get this report? What can we do with it?
So, I'll answer that. Ms. Rogers also has great background in this, so she can correct me if I'm wrong or fill it in. So the power that a local government has is to be able to hold a wireless facility to the FCC standards. So if we were to find out that they were beyond the FCC standards, then we may be able to address it, but we can't require anything beyond what the FCC requires.
Okay. Is there is there a number? I'm a math person, y'all know me.
You have to check that for you, Councilmember Hinkle.
Okay.
Councilmember Hinkle, we have to look at that with you. The FCC, interestingly enough, has had a lot of rulemakings in this area in the last, I would say, 4 to 6 years, and we're looking at a new FCC right now, which could potentially also change the regulations in this area. So we'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay, yeah, I would like to have, staff feedback on, what sort of threshold are we looking at and, what does that mean for Broomfield, just overall, just so we have some equity here, not just in this one contract. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? We're voting on the amendment first. All in favor? Opposed? The amendment passes unanimously. Now we'll vote on the amendment. I mean, on the word that says amended.
A resolution.
The resolution, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you so much. The city and county attorney's report is next. Ms. Rogers, do you have a report?
I do. Real quick, I just want to thank Christine before you leave real quick for council and Councilmember Anderson. I do recognize this was a full agenda and we had a tough week. But I do want to recognize that Christine mobilized very quickly on this request this afternoon, and it is greatly appreciated. So thank you. Get home. All right, thank you, Mayor. I do have an update. As we talked about earlier in the evening, I was gonna let council know, where do we go now for the council member vacancy? We do have a 30-day window in which to fill the vacancy. Staff will be, I apologize, I'm trying to pull up my newer notes. Staff will be posting the vacancy tomorrow. It will be live and getting the word out that we do have a vacancy. You have to be from the appropriate ward and be duly qualified to apply. One of the questions we wanted to check with council, like I said before, there's not many procedures on this. Previously, council had applications submitted and then interviewed the candidates, and we wanted to see if council would like to continue with that process for this selection. We had a tight time frame on this. We only have 30 days, but if council does want to do an interview process, we can make that work. Either doing Spark Hire type of interviews, videos, or doing virtual interviews or even in person. So I don't know if I'd like to open that up. I'm sorry, before we get to that point, this will be on the agenda July 13th. That's the meeting that we have to have it on the agenda for us to meet that time frame. So that's the time frame we're thinking about. So first question is, would you like applications or letters of interest? Longer. The application is a lot longer, provides something similar to what boards and commissions provide applicants for boards and commissions. Letter of interest would be a cover letter.
Well, we can take council member input on that.
if you'd like.
That would be great, thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Councilmember Lynn. I would prefer an application that gives a little more information about the prospective council members. Thank you. Councilmember Henkel.
Sorry, thank you. I sat down a lot today during our diversity training. I would really like to have an application just so we can flesh out, who the candidates are. And then also Spark Hire. I feel like those were really good questions that we had, and that, we can get a good feel of their personality as well. They're going to be publicly facing, and I feel like definitely add the dimension to the application process. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tansky.
I also would like the application. I think getting to know them a little bit better. I would like to see like a Spark Hire too. I mean, if we could do that, that I think was really, really awesome for the other boards and commissions, and would love to see that.
Thank you. Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Dewar.
Thank you. Yeah, application, most certainly to get the most information. I'd be okay with the Spark Hire as long as we get a more concise interview process. The one for the boards and commissions, there was how long each one was, but it was like 3 minutes and 5 or 6 different questions. So we can be more concise and keep it to a shorter time frame.
Thank you, Councilmember Zaborski. Councilmember Groom.
Application.
And video interviews, Spark interviews, that would be great. Okay, cool. Then Councilmember Linstead.
And agree with the chair of all the above.
All that. Councilmember Staff.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think that, I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Jaworski on this. I think that the application is great to have the, more encompassing information when it comes to our applicants applying. But I do think that, those Spark Hire, we shouldn't be reiterating those same questions that we had on the application. So they have to kind of grow the amount of information, but at the same point, they can't be, tens of minutes of, interviews there. So concise, but, additional questions that kind of add to the breadth of knowledge that we have for that candidate.
Councilmember Anderson.
Oh, thank you. Definitely want the application. And then my suggestion on the Spark Hire, which is very helpful, is to limit each question to 3 minutes, but an overall max 7 minutes or max 10 minutes, so you can decide which questions you want to spend more time on, but not 3 total minutes on every single question. Something along that lines to keep it a little more concise.
Did you have something else to add?
No, that was actually.
Did everybody get to weigh in? Councilmember Lawton?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just sitting here digesting, and I do like the idea of an application, and I really like the idea of a short Spark Hire interview. I guess I almost think though that it might be better if the application has got specific questions. Maybe the Spark Hire interview should simply be 3 minutes of an open-ended question like, why are you qualified and why do you want this? Because the the application questions are going to already have answered. So if we had just like a 3 minute soundbite, I can say a lot in 3 minutes. I assume everyone else can too. Just make your elevator pitch right there in the 3 minutes rather than a huge, long series of questions. So that's my thinking. Thank you.
Right, so I think we have consensus, Ms. Rogers, on the application and the Spark Hire, and you will start compiling that to go out tomorrow.
Yes, and I'm looking at City Clerk Erica Delaney Liu, and I'm going to go through what we think the timeline would be. So on the 23rd, the vacancy in the application will be posted on the website. We'll also get word out to the Broomfield Enterprise and post it on all of our social media platforms that this is going on. Please let qualified applicants know about it. Applications will be due, again, we're on a tight time frame, Wednesday, July 7th. So 5 p.m. Wednesday, July 7th is when applications would be due. And then the Spark Hires would be recorded. We'll figure out the exact time frame for that. But I do like the idea of, it's just your elevator pitch, no questions. And then this will be on council's agenda for July 13th.
And Judge Bachman will be here that night to swear in the new council member.
Wonderful. Well, we
I'm
have
going to clarify this really quickly, only because of this whole, the Spark interview, so we've gotten it, we're really, really good at it now. So if I may take the liberty to, when Ms. Delaney, when we send that application, generally it takes like 3 times to be able to say, don't forget your Spark interview, don't forget your Spark interview, don't. Here's the timeline, right? The application is due along with your Spark interview. 3 minutes. One of the questions that's fascinating for every employee that we have, the one that gets them the most, interestingly enough, because you can't prepare for it, is why Broomfield. And if they say, you know, it's the next step in my career, or this is my, right, if they don't get the nexus, it's, that question, as simple as it is. So if that sounds okay to you all, they do the application to Mayor Pro Tem Jezierski's point, answering those questions, and then the 3 minute is why Broomfield.
Councilmember Lyman.
I like that, but I also want to hear their elevator speech.
Okay.
Because if they can't make a pitch, if they can't make it, then I want to hear their elevator speech.
Why me?
Yeah, why Bloomfield and why me?
Yeah.
Why me and Broomfield?
Right.
Well, we can't really run.
Do I get to weigh in and
for
agree anymore?
3 minutes, 3 minute max on the Spark interviews. That helps us set it up too.
We even, when we get the Spark interviews, if they go longer than 3 minutes, cut it off before you post it. Just to make sure. No, I'm serious, to make sure it's fair to everyone.
Well, I think it can be bet too.
Okay, whatever, yeah. Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Cool.
So I think, this is Erica Delaney, I'm the city county clerk. And I would like to just maybe address whether council would be comfortable moving the application due date up a day. So originally the draft was for Wednesday, July 7th, and that was because of the holiday. If I make that deadline Tuesday, July 6th at the end of business, then the next morning, every candidate could be emailed saying, record your Spark hire here. And we could have those due, like, say, the end of the day Thursday. Because otherwise, if we don't have the interviews come in until the end of the day Friday, then you guys are all gonna be watching them over the weekend, which I certainly know that you guys do weekend work. So I guess I would suggest maybe if you're comfortable with applications being due on the 6th, Tuesday, July 6th, then interviews due by, we could even do Friday, July 9th by noon, if that works.
Any objections to that, Councilmember Shaft?
It's not necessarily an objection, I just want to clarify something. So when an applicant has submitted their application, at that point, they are notified to complete their Spark hire interview. So they're not going to have to wait until July 6th to start their Spark hire at that point.
If they submitted their application earlier, we could certainly work with HR to get the Spark hire links out.
Okay,
sooner.
great. Yeah, that was my question, so thank you.
And then I do just want to make council aware, there are 2 existing candidates running that have filed for candidacy for Ward 5. So those are certainly people who might have an interest and want to apply for this vacancy. And while I have the microphone, I want to introduce, we have a new deputy city clerk, Crystal Clement. And so our clerk and recorder's office is almost fully staffed up. We're about to hire a part-time temporary marijuana application analyst too. And once we have that person join the team, it will be like a complete staff. So that'll be very exciting.
Thank you, Ms. Delaney Lou.
Thank you.
The city and county manager's report is next. Ms. Hoffman, do you have a report?
Just real briefly, kind of tagging right along the same lines as City County Clerk Delaney Lou. Next Tuesday on the 29th, for the 5:15 dinner, we're going to bring in some of the new staff members that we have, the key staff that we have brought on board, but have yet to meet, not only staff, but council in general. So not all the positions. I think one of the speakers tonight indicated some of the key retirements. So we have a new HR director. We clearly, with David Allen, have the replacement for the city county manager. We have a new assessor, of course, the new municipal judge, Amy Bachman, and then we have a new emergency manager. And I did want to note for each one of those positions, we are grateful in Brookfield. We had over a year's notice for each one of those positions. Collectively, they had 20+ years of service for each one of them. So that's pretty remarkable. The additional new staff is because of internal movement. Anytime that we can go internal, it's always that, do you want fresh thought, an interjection of some outside source, or is it depending upon how strong the team is? Public Works was left with a very strong team. So Kimberly Dahl, who's been our deputy for a long time, has now assumed that role. So Kimberly will also be here. We're also shoring up economic vitality. Council knows that we've been working on that team for economic vitality for about 18 months. We just had the final hire for the chaser. We'll have that entire team as well. Now with the city county clerk being in place, and that was due to a resignation, as you all know. We're grateful again that an internal candidate was selected, Erica Delaney Luke. We're all excited about Crystal. So we have, we're going to have at the beginning of the study session, a speed round, like speed dating, for you all to get to see them and get a very brief introduction of who they are and where they come from. And that will round out our team as well as rounding out the CMO team now that Danae is upstairs. Nancy and her staff are pretty upset with CMO. We, by the executive office manager, we appreciate council's patience as we went through COVID, trying to really kind of solidify and shore up what support looks like for each one of you as we move forward. Having Danae up full time is going to make a significant difference. And then we have our executive office manager, did an internal and external recruitment. It all still really surprises me that so many people want to come to the CMO, particularly coming after COVID. So we were able to actually take Nancy's person that they're all pretty upset about.
Hi, Lindsay, we were just getting to that sweet spot.
She's awesome. So that will be in August. So again, just want council to see and get a feel for what the new team looks like, what they bring to the table, and we can honestly say for the first time in 18 months that we are fully staffed. Pretty excited about that. That concludes my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, City Manager Hoffman. Does any council members have any questions for Member Lim?
On the subject of the special study session with the single subject next Tuesday, there seems to be some confusion in the public whether the public is allowed to comment at that or not. Could you clarify that?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Lim. So we've all been experiencing a whole range of emails on this subject. Generally, the procedure that we've had is we don't publish or ask for, and we've had a council member say, ask about community input on the front end prior to those study sessions. Council can dictate whatever style or community engagement or feedback you would like. However, how we have done it in the past is staff gathers a plethora of information, data, in order to make a decision. We present it to council. The community part hears everything that is being presented in that study session. You all give us guidance. We go back to work, sharpening the pencils, the ideas, who's doing what, where, costs, and then we bring it back to a council meeting. At that point, then the community engages, and they engage from the point of the study session on. Reversing that and putting community comments on the front end before the study session. Again, not that we wouldn't do exactly what you told us to do, but from a process perspective, having it play out that way has served us well. We know that this is an emotional issue. This is a really, it's a, staff has been talking about a lot, Councilmember Lim, about how best to hear and engage and weigh what the outcome is. It's going to be a very difficult study session. That is a tough study session. It's a tough study session on staff. In that we are not coming with, this is what you all should or shouldn't do, right? Like we normally do in a council memo where we say, this is our recommendation. That's not what next Tuesday is. Next Tuesday is, there are no easy solutions. This is not a silver bullet. Each one of these outcome and implications have far-reaching repercussions. Again, given that it is such an emotional, high-touch issue, and a lot of philosophical and ideological feelings are attached to that outcome. I just say that from the management of expectations, given that we did not know who was going to be mayor and or mayor pro tem this evening. Your council agenda will come out tomorrow morning instead of tonight as it regularly would. Again, the memo from a managing expectations perspective. We're all used to Stan being outside when that music gets, so we all check out Stan at that particular moment when he was so again, this is another one of those issues that we will unequivocally do our best. We will continue to put all resident feedback in the folders, and then we'll take it from there. So again, if there's a change in direction, Councilmember Lim, after conversations, but again, there's a methodology to doing it that way. And part of it is just managing the process, especially on these really hot button issues. It takes very little to kind of set something in motion that goes the other direction. And social media is it's very tough. Tough to manage, tough to watch, tough to engage. So, and that's all part of what we're doing right now. So it's especially on this issue.
Sure. Any other council member questions or comments?
I have just one question. Do we know, are there going to be, who's going to be helping with the presentation of the material?
So that the first part of the, and thanks for the question, Councilmember Tessier. Again, there's, when we lay out the path, then there's a lot of, but what about this? And how come we can't talk about this? And this person is a resident expert in this. So again, from a staff perspective, we've gone through this probably 4 times with our entire chart team, which is a multidisciplinary approach. Being in touch with our nonprofits, being in touch with our service organizations, being in touch with who does it really well. From a mental health perspective, from a housing perspective, our regional partner perspective. Next week, council can expect a staff presentation. It's not a resident expert in the field presentation. Again, kind of segregating not the long-term systemic pieces of it, but the short-term, what are we doing right now? Because from a PD perspective, from an open space perspective, we have to have a conversation about what enforcement means, what it looks like. If not, I mean, again, we have the same conversation about development, right? If not here, where? And so the fundamental logistics of what that rules of engagement are and what happens after that. So again, because we all own that this conversation can turn into an enormous conversation quickly. And we won't come out from a staff perspective saying, this is what council is going to agree to on that next meeting, which is having a plan. Yeah. I was talking to Nancy this morning, there's 3 folks underneath the tree on 120th. So again, it's upon us. So again, systemic is the second conversation that we're going into next Tuesday, is specifically for open space, parks, and what enforcement looks like.
Thank you, Councilman Hinkle.
Yeah, and I guess it's just more of a statement. I think this is just a sensitive topic in the fact that we had a lot of, misconceptions right off the bat. And so I think we're just really sensitive to that as far as, the language and the enforcement, that there was a lot of confusion about that. So I think it's okay to say, people want to still talk about it, and that's okay too. So I want to make sure that if people are approached, with ideas or, as far as what they can do, to support council efforts in the future, I think that conversation is always just going to be continuous. So I think, which is just, it's a sensitive topic, and it also, was, there's just a lot of confusion in the beginning, and that, I just think we have to be sensitive to that too. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have a question, City and County Manager Hopper. And it's in regard to the section 18 on remote attendance. When did we schedule that? I didn't mean to stop there, because we're gonna need to start, figuring out a way to allow people to participate remotely, to accommodate them.
We have it on the agenda for August 10th. But the discussion is sooner than that. July 6th is the discussion, the study session discussion, similar to the last amendment we did. That would actually be the approval of the resolution changing the rules.
Okay, on July 6th, yeah. So if the council member wanted to request an exception now, how would they go about it?
A good question. Council has the ability to allow a waiver of its own rules. You regulate yourself. So given that this is on deck of a discussion, if I may, Councilmember Griffey. Councilmember Groom you'll see it in your email, has made a request to participate virtually at the study session. Given that virtual participation is on deck coming down the pipe, and given that it's a study session, so no votes are taken, it's not a quasi-judicial matter, council could decide among yourselves to waive the rule for this meeting on Councilmember Groom's request.
Okay, can we do that now?
You can.
I can't make a motion anymore, but if somebody wants to make a motion that we waive the rule for, thank you, Councilmember Lott.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we waive the rule against virtual participation for next week's study session for anybody who's gone. Councilmember Broom, anybody who's gone. Is that sufficient, Nancy?
Yeah, that's right. But you want to allow virtual participation?
Yeah.
Well, okay, fair enough. Are we gonna waive?
I think we're all talking about the same.
Right, are we gonna waive the rule against virtual participation, or are we gonna, both?
Oh, I see
All
what
of the
you're
above.
saying.
Yeah, all of the above. How's that? All of the above. Councilmember Bloom can infer, yeah.
Councilmember Kennedy, second.
All in favor?
It's unanimous.
That just saved an email.
Thank you. All right, let's move it on. Item 18A, or there's no legislative update, there's no business for the Urban Renewal Authority or the Arista Local Improvement District Board of Directors. Additionally, there are no special reports this evening. Item 18A was removed from the agenda at the request of Councilmember Law Evans. Council and the public were notified with an agenda update yesterday. Is there any other business to come before the council? There being no further business, the council meeting is adjourned.